Good afternoon. I'd like to thank everyone for coming to this very important meeting of the City Council as we do the people's work. At this time, if you would, please stand for the invocation, which will be given by Councilman Dr. Curtis Edmonds, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Dr. Edmonds.
Gracious God, our Father, we come before your presence today with thanksgiving in our hearts. Thankful, Lord, that we've come to this part of the day that you awakened us from early this morning. Not certain of any moments beyond this, but being appreciative for the right now. We come, Lord, to discuss the business of our city, and we ask, God, that you will give us guidance, that you will speak through us and how we order and arrange what we say. We ask, Lord, that we stand for the common good, that we act according to our will, to your will, and that your will be done. Touch every person that's in this room. Touch every person that sits on this dais. And let us all, Lord, come together for that common good of moving our city ahead. Bless us to do that. And we'll be careful to give your name praise, glory, and honor. For it's in Jesus' name we ask it. Amen.
Thank you, Dr. Edmonds. At this time, members of council, would you please indicate your presence electronically?
Seven members of the City Council are present.
All right, thank you, Madam Clerk. Members of the City Council, you have before your consideration the minutes of a call meeting of February the 25th, 2013, a call meeting of February the 26th, 2013, a regular meeting of February the 26th, 2013, and a call meeting of March the 5th, 2013. Are there any corrections to the minutes?
Move that the minutes be adopted as read.
Ms. Simmons?
Yes, sir. I'll second Mr. Moody's motion with the correction on the February 25th meeting that Dr. Stuckwich's name be spelled correctly.
Okay. Any other comments or corrections? Okay, we got a motion and a second. Madam Clerk?
Yes, sir. We have a motion and a second, and you're voting electronically. The minutes are adopted with the noted correction 7-0.
Okay. Madam Clerk?
13-109, presentation of special lapel pins to newly appointed boards and commissions members. If the following could join the Vice Mayor at the Sergeant at Arms desk, please. With the Americans with Disabilities Commission, Mr. Carl Seward. With the History Commission, Mr. Earl Moore. Ms. Emily Sanders. With the Library Board, Mr. Robert Barber. With the Portsmouth Port and Industrial Commission, Mr. Guy Wallace. He's already here. With the Social Services Advisory Commission, Ms. Patrice Ward. And with the Southeastern Alcohol Safety Action Program, Ms. Ursula Murphy.
Is that it? That's it. Let's give all of them a hand, please.
First, I want to congratulate you all for being appointed to a board and commission. It's a significant event for the City of Portsmouth because the City Council relies on the work of the boards and commissions and recommendations to make the vital decisions we have to make every day for our city. So on behalf of the mayor and the entire City Council, I want to thank you for being willing to give up your time, your services for free. Free to the City of Portsmouth. And for all you out in the audience and those who are watching at home, we still have other vacancies available. So you can either go to the website and apply or contact the clerk's office to get a list of vacancies and the application. So let's give another round of applause as they return to their seats. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Cherry. Madam Clerk?
Yes, sir. Thirteen 110, item A, motion to appoint city manager, electronic roll call.
Let me, if I can, great for the motion. I just want to make sure that I clarify myself and my concerns with the process and what we've done here tonight. I am elated that we as a team has come to a conclusion. However, I'm disappointed in the process that we used. And again, my reflection is on the emphasis on fairness and equal opportunity and making sure that we have an open process for everyone to apply. I think I was very clear with that statement earlier a couple of weeks ago, and somehow through negative and dirty politics, race was introduced, religion was introduced, and a whole lot of other things that really got me deeply concerned about the city and some of our leaders and how our citizens would take this bad behavior. So I am appalled of how that whole process came about, and I'm just hopeful that we as a council can one day understand the importance of leadership, the importance of having rules and regulations on how to handle activities such as this so we don't lose our public trust and the public perception of whether or not there's something being done correct or incorrect. Because the unfortunate part in all of that is we as a family and as a city have to make sure that we come together after no matter what we do and do the city's business. And being able to call out a certain group of pastors or a certain race of people and all of those things in the process of just wanting to win is a very, very dangerous technique, not only for a politician, but for any leader in that position. So I'm disappointed. We have 3 excellent candidates here tonight. We've been very torn with this whole race issue. Somehow we wind up fighting ourselves, and then we all turned on the press and said he shouldn't have wrote it, and he puts his twist on it, and you know, it's troublesome. This was all of our doing and not having a formal process and how we vet candidates and go through the process. And so I hope with moving forward that this council, hopefully when our retreat comes around this spring, that we can look at rules and regulations and put structure into how we handle things so it doesn't become a political football and how we outmaneuver each other and how we get citizens of different classes, races, and religions to start going against each other. That is very dangerous. And a city like Portsmouth that is, I think, our greatest asset and our greatest strength is our diversity and how we applaud each other about our passion and how we come together and voice our opinions, whether you are Citizen Joe or Citizen Jane. I look forward to it, and most of us look forward to it. And when you do that, you're expressing your right. That is the political process in which we operate under in this country. And to chastise anyone for doing that and tying them to groups and all of those things, I think is just wrong. So again, my whole purpose of my conversation here tonight is about fairness. You'll see tonight that we hopefully unanimously will make a historic move in the city of Portsmouth to authorize $200,000 for a disparity study to be performed in this city. For the first time, this city will take on that issue, and the crux of that matter is fairness. It's about equal opportunity for everyone, women, minorities, whoever, to get a fair shot at doing business in this city. Our school board 2 years ago took on that bold task by themselves, and we all applaud them for that. But again, I don't want anyone to leave out of here, or anyone looking on television, to leave out of here thinking it's a personal thing with these candidates. We've got good candidates, but you never create a policy draw up a conclusion or a game plan around a person. The structure and the process that we use should be independent. I thought we learned that lesson some time ago when our school board was fractured behind the same type of dirty politics with trying to appoint someone without going through a process. And that was painful, and it was not pretty for this city. And so I hope after we move forward tonight, we can come to some type of structure on how we handle this, because you, the public, are going to view us and look at the inconsistent ways in which we do things. And then people will try to interject race, religion, and all of those things. But once we've done our duty as your leaders and had guidelines, and we should be comfortable with those decisions and not have someone like the mayor standing up here speaking in opposition of what we're about to do. Because once you do interject race and all of those things, we start bringing up things that are not kind to any of us and in our history. And then you look at what we're doing tonight when we all say it isn't about race and nobody, we have an African-American candidate and two Caucasian candidates. One went through one process, the Caucasian candidates went through another. There isn't a racial bone up here, and I believe that on this whole council. But the perception that we put out and how this writer and these people record what we do tonight, we can't control. And it's within their right to question, why did you have two different processes? And so we as a council and as a leadership team have to get our arms around that so we don't go to the edge like we did these last 2 weeks with this matter, because this is too important. We have on all of our literature in this city that the city of Portsmouth is an equal opportunity employer, and we should act like it. Yes, we're the council. Yes, we can do things because we're the council. It's been shared to me. We're the council. We can do what we want. We still are held accountable for you, the people, and how you perceive what we do and how we work together after this is over is extremely important. It's not about winning or losing. It truly is about how we play the game, because we have to come together to do our business. So with that long-winded speech, I'll,
Very long.
very long, Mr. Moody said, I'll move to the motion. Madam Clerk.
Yes, sir. Ms. Simmons, could you repeat your motion again, please?
Yes, ma'am. I move that the City Council appoint John L. Rowe, Jr. as city manager at an annual salary of $150,000 a year, effective immediately, and that the mayor be authorized and directed to execute the First Amendment to Mr. Rowe's employment contract to reflect that his appointment is no longer on an interim basis.
Second.
Mayor, you have a motion and a second, and you will be voting electronically. This item is adopted 6-1. Item B, motion to appoint city attorney, electronic roll call.
I move that the City Council appoint George M. Wilson as city attorney at an annual salary of $150,000 effective immediately, and that the mayor be authorized and directed to execute an employment agreement on the terms agreed to by the City Council and Mr. Wilson in a very fair process.
Mayor, we have a motion and a second. You'll be voting electronically. This item is adopted 6-1. Item C, motion to appoint city auditor, electronic roll call.
Mayor, I move that the city appoint Jesse A. Thomas as city auditor at an annual salary of $90,000 a year, effective April 1st, 2013, and that the mayor be authorized and directed to execute an employment agreement on the terms agreed to by the City Council and Mr. Thomas.
Second.
Mayor, we have a motion and a second, and you will be voting electronically. This item is adopted 7-0. City Council rules require limit, oh, excuse me.
Okay, yeah. Let me first of all, and ask you to join in us in congratulating these three candidates. Can we at least get those three candidates? Can Mr. Thomas please come up? And Mr. Wilson and Mr. Rowe, would y'all join Mr. Thomas down, if you would? Yep. Yep. And if we could briefly, I'd just like to entertain the mayor for 1 second. I want us all, if we would, starting with you, Bishop, that we can go down and congratulate each one of them and come back up. One more round of applause.
Mayor, I just want to say that, Mr. Thomas's wife had an unfortunate accident a couple of weeks ago, but I see she rolled in here in a wheelchair, so I want to recognize her sitting in the back, her beautiful wife, Bonnie.
Thank you, sir. Well done. Madam Clerk?
Yes, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, City Council rules, excuse me.
Councilman Meeks? Cut your mic on.
Mayor, I need to sustain myself from agenda item 13111. Or
Okay.
public hearing is Z1301. I have a financial interest in this.
Okay, very good. If you would excuse yourself, and we will continue. All right. Thank you for that, sir. Madam Clerk?
Yes, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, City Council rules require a limit of up to 5 minutes to speak. As you approach the speaker's podium, you will notice a timer. At the beginning of your 5 minutes, you will notice a green light. 4 minutes into your remarks, you will notice a yellow light. At the end of your 5 minutes, you will see a red light, hear a beep, and we ask that you please conclude your remarks at that time. Public hearing, 13-111, public hearing on rezoning and use permit applications. Item A, Z1301, Craddock. Craddock Properties by Charles Bardner, PE agent, requests modifications to the conditions of the conditional zoning and design guidelines of the property address as 4300 George Washington Highway and 0 Victory Rear. The property is currently zoned conditional UR-MPO, Urban Residential Master Plan Overlay. This property is the entire site of the former Craddock High School site and property to the south that extends from George Washington Highway to Deep Creek Boulevard. This site is proposed for single-family detached dwelling that are to be built in compliance with a set of design guidelines. Vision principle, a robust economy for working men and women, electronic roll call, and I have a speaker.
Change it for me. Mr. Mayor, Mr. Vice Mayor, ladies and gentlemen of council, good evening.
Good evening.
My name's Fred Brousseau. I'm the interim planning director for the city, and I'm here tonight to present to you this request for modifications to the conditions of a conditional rezoning application for the concept plan and the design guidelines of the property that's addressed as 4300 George Washington Highway. As you can see on the slide that's before you, the property is currently zoned UR-MPO-K. It's an urban residential master planned overlay conditional application that was heard and approved by City Council in the summer of 2011. The applicant is before you tonight, or the application is, to modify parts of the concept site plan and the design guidelines. The site plan that you see is the site plan that was proposed with this original rezoning that was adopted, as I said, in the summer of 2011. The plan calls for 200 single-family detached structures to be developed on the site that was the former Craddock High School site. I think it's important right now, even though we talked about it in the summer of 2011, to go over a few numbers with you so you can see what the financial impact of this project would be. Property currently has an assessment of $10,998. That includes the building, which is considered obsolete and structurally obsolete. When completed, there will be, as I said, 200 single-family units, each with an average value of $216,500, or a total of in excess of $43 million on this site. That will provide, and I'm saying as a net, not as a gross, but as a net total annual increase to the city's tax base of approximately $673 per unit. Now, the reason we're here tonight is because the applicant has come forward with some modifications to this design guideline that has to be approved by council. They were very specifically listed as conditions and must be approved. You will see the existing and proposed development. What the applicant has asked for is permission to take access onto Finchley, which was specifically indicated not to happen for 3 units. During the presentations at Planning Commission and City Council, the applicant indicated there would not be any access on Finchley. Now, in order to save some extremely mature trees and provide some ease of access, they are proposing these the modifications as you see under the proposed development. Additionally, there was a condition on the rezoning that, and we did this to allow the applicant to try and move ahead quicker, for the plans to be reviewed and approved by the Director of Planning for the area along George Washington Highway. What has occurred, though, is the applicant has added a pool. Unfortunately, by definition, it's a stormwater management pond, and their guidelines say they will not have this type of pond in the facility. So we're coming back saying that they would be having the stormwater facility as part of the design. Additionally, along George Washington Highway, there would be a fence, and we felt like that we needed to include everything that was being changed in the plans as it comes before you tonight. Other changes, they wish to have the ability to construct, if land area is available, a garage, a detached garage of up to 20 feet by 20 feet. They have provided the detailed lighting plan that we were asking for with details on the fixtures that were to be used, and they wish to modify to allow vinyl fencing as an additional item instead of just the wood fencing that they had originally had in the design guidelines. To the north, you have commercial development along George Washington Highway. To the east, you have the Craddock Historic Neighborhood. To the south, you have Williams Court. Really, it's the 2 shopping centers that look like one. And then to the west, you have the residential development that's in existence. Okay. Staff recommended approval to the Planning Commission to adopt the proposed changes that are contained in the guidelines that were updated, and you have a copy. And the Planning Commission, by a vote of 6-0, recommends to you to adopt the requested changes. Now, that includes my presentation. Are there any questions?
Yeah, let me first of all ask you, what was the whole purpose of moving the BMP and then changing and making the march that street? Can you go back to that one, I think the first diagram when you had the different streets?
That one? No.
Right there.
The plans did not include any stormwater management ponds at all. They were using the low-impact development concerns to handle the stormwater on the site. Pervious pavement for the alleys, those types of things, and there were existing concrete foundations that had been left when Williams Court was demolished. Mm-hmm. When they ran the calculations, they still did not need them, but they wanted to provide a water feature that was an amenity to the entrance to the facility. However, since it was taking stormwater from the streets and the roads, by definition, it was a required BMP and was not permitted under the regulations and the guidelines as had been written by the applicant.
So it couldn't be a water feature and a BMP to serve both purposes?
It could be a water feature and not a BMP as long as they did not have waters from the street, from the storm.
The runoff.
The runoff from the street coming into that facility. If they had chosen to take that out, it would have been an acceptable water feature. But since they were including that, it did not meet the qualifications either under the EPA regulations or under ours. EPA will allow it, but we had to modify our regulations to get it to pass muster.
I got you. And you say the Planning Commission are okay with these
Planning
modifications?
Commission, by a vote of 6-0, recommended approval of all of the changes.
Okay, thank you. Very good. Councilman Church. I'm sorry, Vice Mayor Church.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Brousseau, what effect, if any, would these changes have on the timeline?
My understanding is that the applicant is planning to move ahead. The plans were submitted today for review for phases 1 and 2. And I think the construction or the demolition of the building will be starting sometime this fall, and the infrastructure going in this fall with construction starting in with spring of next year. Thank you.
Councilman Moody.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mr. Brousseau. The water feature or the BMP, that will have aeration?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes, sir, it will be required.
thank you.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Council members, we have a speaker, Mr. C.J. Botner.
Good evening, Mayor Wright, Vice Mayor Cherry, members of council. My name is C.J. Bodner, the Director of Community Development for Hoggard Ure Associates. We are the agent for the applicant, Craddock Properties, for this development. Mayor, to answer your question, we felt something needed to be installed at that entrance for a water feature. And unfortunately, under EPA's definitions, it's counted as a BMP. And the way we wrote the design guidelines, we couldn't have a BMP that was a wet pond. So we had to come back and modify that through council. While we were doing that, we wanted to change the alley to preserve the existing specimen trees that are along Derby. We have met with the resident who's right next door to the alley. She has no problems with that, with the alley coming onto Finchley. We've met with Craddock, the Craddock
Civic League.
homeowner, Civic League, thank you. And they are just happy the project's moving forward. We're excited about the project moving forward, and I'm here, if you have any questions, I'm here to answer any questions you have.
The rationale for the shed or the garage, 20 by 20, what are you going to do there?
That was for, basically for the rear-loaded. We have both front-loaded units where they'll have a driveway coming off the street. We also have rear-loaded, as shown on the drawing there, where they will access their lot from the rear of the lot. It'll allow them to be able to put a 20 by 20 shed that's detached from, or 20 by 20 garage that's detached from the house. Okay. It wouldn't have to be attached to the main structure. Under the current design guidelines that you all approved in 2011, we wouldn't be able to put a detached garage in the yard.
Understand, very good. One last thing, when, if all of this get approved, are we going to start breaking ground?
I'm glad you asked that, Mayor, because I sat down with Craddock Properties today, and they are looking to have, we have to provide a 90-day notice to public Parks and Rec for vacating the Craddock building. We're looking at providing that notice on March 29th. Okay. In order to do that, we have to put all the financial information from the developer will have to have been submitted. That will have been submitted by that date. So we're looking at closing on the property sometime in the time frame of May 5th, starting construction on the football field and the recreation building at the Craddock Middle School site, which the plans for that are already approved, on April the 15th. And starting the baseball field as soon as we finish the football field sometime around the beginning of June. Okay. So you're looking at sometime around May 10th, there in that time frame, starting the asbestos abatement on the building. Okay. And the 90-day notice will expire June 27th, and we will be looking to tear down the building and start site development at that time.
Okay. And don't forget the relocation of the park. We still, the playground area?
Yes, sir. That's still part of the project at this time. Yes, sir.
Okay. Very good. And I think I had one more. Okay, I'll reserve. Councilwoman Miranda. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
It seems to be a well-thought-out product, that you're putting up here. But one of the things for people who may not be able to get some understanding of what the pictorial representation will be, I'm thinking in terms of the models that would be placed. Do you have an assimilation of something for citizens to see approximately
Yes, ma'am.
which areas they would in?
If we can go back to, I think it's one screen back, or two screens back, I'm sorry. That right there shows the phases that we're proposing to develop. The first phase being the 43 lots adjacent to the Burger King. It's on the far right side of the screen as you're looking at it. The second phase would extend all the way down to Derby, which, if you didn't know, Derby's not actually a platted street. So we're going to correct that. We're going to build all the way to the roundabout, and then as phases 3 and 4 occur, we will build back towards Victory Boulevard.
Okay, and the designs of models that would be within those particular corridors?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you have that to show to the residents?
I have a copy of the design guidelines here if anyone would like to see what the elevations of the buildings would look like. They can also contact me at my office at 484-9670 if they'd like to take a look at them.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
Mr. Barton, let me ask you, phase 1, it's closest to the Burger King where the old football
Yes, sir.
field was there. We're going to start phase 1 now phase 3 is where the old Craddock High School?
Phase 2 is where the existing high school building is at, but there
So will
is-
we be working simultaneous? Will we be working on the I guess, north end there by the Burger King while we're tearing down the high school?
Yes, sir. At the time they start the building demolition, they will look to start building the infrastructure for phase 1, which is building the roads, the utilities, the storm drainage, getting everything prepared so that they will be able to have lots to subdivide and be able to start selling those lots for builders to be able to build on.
Okay, all right, very good. Thank you, sir. All right, Madam Clerk?
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is a public hearing on item Z13-01. At this time, if there's anyone in the audience that would like to speak but did not have an opportunity to register, please come forward, give your name and address, and you will have up to 5 minutes to speak on item Z13-01. Members of City Council, this public hearing is closed.
Move adoption.
Mayor, we have a motion and a second, and you'll be voting electronically.
Okay, very good.
This item is adopted 5-1.
Let Mr. Meeks in.
Item B, UP 13-02, Midtown Regional Activity Center. Ali Daughtry, agent for Kroger, Limited Partnership 1, requests a use permit to construct a large retail development, single-tenant building containing approximately 125,000 square feet in Phase 1 with the potential to expand to approximately 155,000 square feet as a part of a large commercial shopping center to be located at 2900 Turnpike Road. This site is the site of the former I.C. Norcom High School. The property contains 21.02 acres and is owned by the Portsmouth Economic Development Authority. The future land use map in the comprehensive plan calls for the area to be developed as commercial and as part of the Midtown Regional Activity Center. Vision principle, a robust economy for working men and women. Electronic roll call.
Mr. Mayor, members of City Council, my name is Jonathan Hartley, Planning Administrator with the City Planning Department. This is the first of 2 items that are on your agenda tonight associated with the proposed development of a Kroger Marketplace and Shopping Center on the former I.C. Norcom High School site. This is the first use permit is to allow a single tenant building of in excess of 60,000 square feet. On the right is the zoning map, which designates the property as GMU, or General Mixed Use. Around this site, you have zonings of urban residential high to the east, northeast, and south. And UR, or urban residential, which is the West Haven Park neighborhood, to the west, and then to your northwest you have commercial development, including the Walmart and a number of other commercial establishments. This is, it gives you an aerial photo, gives you a slightly different perspective. To the south is Seaboard Square, which was formerly the Jeffrey Wilson housing project. To the west, you have the West Haven Park neighborhood, and to the northwest, you have the Walmart. And to the northeast, you have the Mount Herman neighborhood, and directly east is the Crescent Place Apartments, directly behind this project. Just to run through some of the photos of the surrounding area from the ground level, this is looking to the northeast, and this is the rear of the rear of the residence in the Mount Harmon neighborhood that are directly adjacent to the property. You can also see the northernmost building of the Crescent Place Apartments. This is the Crescent Place Apartments due east of the project, and the fence that you see in the photo is actually the property line. This will be, these apartment buildings will be directly behind the Kroger Marketplace and the Junior Anchor building, and there'll be screening as required by the ordinance along this property line to minimize the impact on the apartments. This is the Seaboard Square project, formerly the Jeffrey Wilson housing complex, which is now being built using traditional neighborhood development concepts. And then looking west, really across Turnpike Road towards the Walmart and the West Haven Park neighborhood. So it's a fairly large parcel, now vacant. There are a few key points from the comprehensive plan that should be made related to this project. First, the site is in the Midtown Regional Activity Center, so it is a major commercial and a major regional activity node within the city, along with the downtown area. Second, the site is designated for commercial use, intended to strengthen retail uses and associated sales and tax revenues to the city. The other thing just to mention about this project is that the plan encourages that each vacant and redeveloped parcel be used to its highest and best use. And that has driven staff to encourage the developers of this property to maximize the commercial development as much as possible, which is why not only do you see these permits, but some of the other approvals that were necessary by the Planning Commission. In summary, the staff believes that the proposed use and overall development plan is consistent with the comprehensive plan. This is an overall concept plan, and I believe you have a copy of this in your packet. Just to kind of summarize it, it's approximately 200,000 square feet of retail space. 124,000 of that is the Kroger Marketplace, and they are planning at some point in the future for a 30,000 square foot expansion, so it would be 154,000 square feet. There is an additional junior anchor just north of that, which is about 26,000 square feet, and another 22,000 square feet of smaller retail space. In addition, there are 3 outparcels on Frederick Boulevard, which at this point don't have any specific development proposals. There's also a 4th outparcel that will be the fuel center for Kroger, which will be developed with the Kroger Marketplace. Just to run through some of the site aspects, there will be 2 primary access points for vehicles, which will be full-fledged intersections, and then there will be 2 right-in and right-out intersections, one each on Frederick and one on Turnpike. And then there is a truck entrance and exit off of Turnpike Road as well. A traffic impact assessment was prepared for this project, and it's in your packet as well. And it identifies the road improvements that are warranted, which includes a traffic light to be installed at Frederick Boulevard and Scott Street, as well as the necessary turning lanes and so on that are necessary to accommodate each of the access points. Just as important as vehicular access is pedestrian access, something that both the comprehensive plan and the zoning ordinance have fairly strong provisions for. And this indicates what the pedestrian circulation pattern would be on the site. Critical to this are the crosswalks that would connect across the major streets of Frederick and Turnpike. Also, the applicant has agreed to construct a bus shelter as well as a pedestrian plaza where the HRT bus stop would be on the site. So it's a pretty good circulation pattern overall with what is proposed.
Where are we proposing to put the bus shelter?
The bus shelter would be actually where the star is on the red star is on the map. It's
on Turnpike.
On Turnpike,
okay,
correct.
Gotcha, got it.
And there would be a pedestrian shelter there as well as a pedestrian plaza with benches and trees and so on.
Very good.
The last detail on the overall plan is the landscaping plan. The applicant has proposed landscaping and buffer yards around the rear perimeter adjacent to the apartments and the single-family residences, as well as proposing fairly significant landscaping along Turnpike and Frederick Boulevard, as well as some oversized islands in the parking lot. So it's a good comprehensive landscaping plan, I think, that we can all be proud of. At this point, I'd like to ask Patrick Small to come to the podium and summarize some of the economic aspects of this project, and then we'll go on with the specifics of the use permit.
Very good, thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members
Sir.
of council. My name is Patrick Small. I'm your Economic Development Director. Mr. Hartley's got some of the key numbers up here, but for your benefit and the public's, I want to rehash some of the history about our newest corporate neighbor. For those of you not familiar with Kroger, they're headquartered in Cincinnati, Ohio. They're the #2 grocer in the national marketplace. They entered the Hampton Roads market by acquisition of the Hannaford stores back in about 2000. And beyond those acquisitions, the company really hasn't made its presence felt here in Hampton Roads like it has nationally. Kroger's bringing this marketplace concept to the Mid-Atlantic. The first store, if you cannot wait until we get ours open, that you can go out and visit, will be on the side of the Cloverleaf Mall in Richmond. The second store that they plan to open will be on Holland Road in Virginia Beach on the site of the Kmart that's being redeveloped. And we expect that Portsmouth will have the third such store opened here, hopefully in the first quarter of next year. The company is acquiring the property from the Economic Development Authority. Their footprint is about 13 acres, the 21-acre site. They have a development partner in Cress EG. The EG stands for Ellis Gibson. They are the firm with which many are familiar. They built the Middle Street parking deck. They built the social services building. They're one of the primary architects behind the Red Mill development and others in the Virginia Beach area. John mentioned the size of the project. The Kroger building itself will be a $20 million investment in our city. These stores are not just grocery stores, they're also general merchandisers. So just as the Walmarts and the Targets introduced grocery to their mix some years back, now you see Kroger introducing general merchandising to its mix. So inside this store, you'll have jewelry sales, home goods, pharmacy, electronics, toys, and prepared foods as part of your shopping experience. It's going to be a significant change from the store we're used to here in Churchland. The traditional Kroger's about 55,000 square feet, but as you know, this store will be significantly larger. The balance of the development undertaken by Cress EG is anticipated to be another $10 million investment over and above Kroger's 20, and will create another 200 jobs in addition to the 250 to 300 jobs that Kroger themselves will create. Kroger's anticipated they like sites where they expect they can do $1 million more a week in sales. Between the real estate taxes and the other tax revenues, the city expects about $865,000 a year in tax revenues off of the Kroger, and another $300,000 to $400,000 a year annually in sales from the balance of the development. As to process, you have this in front of you this evening. It's been through the Planning Commission. You'll see it again at the end of the month. The Economic Development Authority will take up 3 agreements at its next meeting on March the 19th. Those agreements are a purchase and sale agreement between itself and Kroger, between itself and Cress EG, and then an overall development agreement that governs all 3 of the parties and their responsibilities to the project. So hopefully by the end of this month, all the contractual and entitlement approvals will be in place. The company can get its site plans into us. The store takes about 44 weeks to build, so we're on a relatively fast track. Hope to be closed on the real estate in June and under construction immediately thereafter. And if you have any questions about the impact portion of the project, I'd be happy to address them for you.
Yeah, very good. Very good news. I want to, first of all, applaud Kroger for their aggressive nature with coming into the Hampton Roads market and having a bigger footprint. You mentioned the first store up in Richmond. I actually had a chance to go and tour that facility. That's in Short Pump, and I think that marketplace is a tad smaller than what they're going to put here. Do you know that?
Kroger's reps are here. They can correct me, but I believe that's a 90,000 square foot.
And we're doing 120 here?
The one that's going on the site of the former Cloverleaf Mall, which they may have taken you by as well, it was still under construction.
Yeah.
That's the prototypical Kroger marketplace they're bringing into the Richmond metro area.
And I think they've also announced that they're doing the same thing in the city of Suffolk.
They have
So,
on College Park Drive, and I neglected to mention when they first began talking to us about this region and their site search about a year ago or so, they were looking to establish about 8 to 10 of these stores regionally. They're now suggesting that the number of stores they bring into the market here in Hampton Roads could be as many as 15. So the company is clearly on an aggressive development track and intends to establish its market share presence here similarly to its presence in the rest of the country.
Very good. Thank you very much. Councilman Moody.
Thank you, Mayor. Patrick,
Yes.
great news. Really congratulate the Kroger folks for their $20 million investment and faith in our city. The Churchland store, any change or any news to share with that? Are the plans still to keep that store open?
We have asked them on several occasions about their plans with regard to the store. The answer that they have given your staff and the Economic Development Authority is as long as that store continues to perform at an acceptable level, it will remain open.
That's good news.
Very good. Thank you very much, both of you. Good job. Madam Clerk.
Yes, sir. What?
I have a few more slides related to the specific request, if I may proceed.
Okay.
Okay.
You know, when you're ahead and everybody's in agreement, you're supposed to stop, right? But you can proceed.
I
right.
will be quick.
Okay.
Again, what is before you tonight is the fact that the ordinance requires a use permit for any building, any single tenant building that exceeds 60,000 square feet, which this does. Essentially, the building that's proposed as the initial phase is the area in blue. It's about 124,000 with a 30,000 square foot addition to come at a later date. You have in your packet renderings of the building, I believe, but it's a good upscale design for this building. This is the building with the expansion added to it that will come at a later date. When that occurs, it will require site plan review and approval, but is being included in this approval, in this permit, so that they don't have to come back through this process at a later date. And that's the end of my presentation. I'll try to answer any questions you have. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Are there any questions? All right, Madam Clerk.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is a public hearing on item UP 13-02. At this time, if there's anyone in the audience that would like to speak but did not have an opportunity to register, please come forward, give your name and address, and you will have up to 5 minutes to speak on item UP 13-02. Members of City Council, this public hearing is closed. We need a motion.
Please. Before they take it back.
Mayor, we have a motion and a second, and you'll be voting electronically.
Very good.
This item is approved 7-0. Item C, UP 13-03, Midtown Regional Activity Center, Ali Daughtry, agent for Kroger Limited Partnership 1, requests a use permit to construct a pharmacy drive-through window as part of the larger commercial shopping center to be located at 2900 Turnpike Road. This site is the site of the former I.C. Norcom High School. The property contains 21.02 acres and is owned by the Portsmouth Economic Development Authority. The future land use map and the comprehensive plan calls for this area to be developed as commercial and as part of the Midtown Regional Activity Center. Vision principle, a robust economy for working men and women. Electronic roll call, and I have no registered speakers.
Mr. Mayor, members of City Council, again, my name's John Hartley. This is the second use permit for the Midtown Kroger project and pertains to the drive-through windows that's proposed in conjunction with the pharmacy. The zoning, again, is general mixed use, or GMU. They are proposing a drive-through window at the north end of the facility, essentially where the expansion area would be in the future. This is a blow-up of that area. There'll be 2 lanes, sufficient stacking space, and really substantial landscaping to kind of buffer this and give it some good character. When the top rendering is what it will look like when it's originally built, and then the bottom rendering is when they move it actually around to the front of the building, which our ordinance does allow, and that'll occur when the expansion of the main building occurs. With that, the Planning Commission did recommend approval of this with the conditions, and I'll try to answer any questions that you have.
Okay, thank you. All right, Madam Clerk.
Yes, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a public hearing on item UP 1303. And at this time, if there's anyone in the audience that did not have an opportunity to register, please come forward, give your name and address, and you will have up to 5 minutes to speak on item UP 13-03. Members of City Council, this public hearing is closed.
Move adoption.
Second.
Mayor, we have a motion and a second, and you'll be voting electronically. This item is approved 7-0. Unfinished business 13-86. Adoption of an ordinance to appropriate new revenues in the amount of $425,000 in the FY 2012-13 education other funds for food costs associated with the existing Rise Ministries summer feeding program and the new Rise Ministries after school program, deferred from the February 26, 2013 City Council meeting. Vision principles, change and new directions, lifelong learning community, neighborhoods and a sense of community and quality of life. Electronic roll call, and I have a registered speaker.
Councilman Moody.
Mayor, I'll hold my comments until the speaker is
Let's let our
finished.
friends from Kroger exit the room. Thank you very much.
Our speaker is Mr. Mark Godalda-Gutrovsky.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, honorable members of council, and fellow citizens. There's a saying that in warfare, armies and navies and air forces are always fighting the previous war. And from the comments at last at the last council meeting, I suspect that you all are now fighting CCDI in the form of this particular proposal. I have to say I'm disappointed that the council members who raised objections last time because they didn't know this or they didn't know that don't appear to have done any independent research to come to a clearer idea of what's going on here. But I've done my own research. I spoke with Ms. Nita Mencia Joseph from the school system to get behind what is going on here. And as I understand it, I have to say I'm sorry that I'm the sole outside speaker on this, because it's best if the people closest to a particular proposal represent it for themselves. But here's what I've gathered. The Department of Agriculture, U.S. Department of Agriculture, which has for 20-some years funded the summer child nutrition program that the city participates in, contacted this particular group, Rise Ministries, because of a previous relationship between the department and this organization about meeting a need in the city of Portsmouth. Rise was in Chesapeake, and the Department of Agriculture asked them to undertake this program. And the need is that there are children in this city, as hard as it is for you and me, who have not missed many meals in our lives, to understand there are many children across the United States who go to bed hungry at night. So the department, through its food program, has made arrangements for Rise, which has been doing this kind of service in other places, to be the funnel for the money that the department provides to prevent children from being undernourished. They have partnered with the school system. I understand that they looked for a private partner, but no private entity was willing to do this. So they went to the school system, which does prepare meals and does have a means of delivering them, to act as the food service component of this piece. Now, the school board doesn't need any money from the city. The money is coming from the U.S. Department of Agriculture. But what they do need is for council, which controls their purse strings, to raise the budgeted amount that was previously approved, to increase the budgeted amount that was previously approved, so they can go ahead and appropriate this money. This is the insanity of the current system, whereby the school system does not control its own destiny as an independent elected body responsible for the schools. Nonetheless, all that you are required to do is to authorize this so they can put this into process. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much for clarifying that. And you're right. From the comments that were made last meeting and the comments that I've heard in the community, there's been all kinds of overkill, that we're giving some group that's at a bowling alley a bunch of city money, and that was probably unfounded. So I thank you for clarifying that. Again, we as council do have the ability to ask questions, and if we don't get the answers, then it is our job to pull the item. So I respect what you're saying and I understand fully what you're saying, but if something is not clarified on this council, then we have obligation to make sure we pull that item until such time. So I think that's what we did, sir. It's just unfortunate how people take that information and run out and And that's an excellent program from everything I've seen and heard and from what we've got from my friends in the school system. So thank you very much.
Members of council, there are no additional speakers on this item. We're in need of a motion. Mayor, we have a motion and a second, and you will be voting electronically. This item is adopted 4-3. City Manager's Report 13-12, adoption of an ordinance accepting a Virginia Littering and Recycling Grant in the amount of $19,025 from the Virginia Department of Environmental Quality and appropriating said sum in the FY 12-13 General Fund for ongoing education and public outreach efforts, vision principles, neighborhoods, and sense of community and quality of life. Electronic roll call, and I have a registered speaker, Ms. Christine Carlton.
Mayor Wright, members of council, my name is Christina Carlton and I reside at 88 Elwyn Road in Craddock. I guess I was under the assumption there was going to be an actual representative for this motion up here because I saw the signs out in the lobby in regards to recycling in particular areas in Portsmouth. What I failed to see are areas that are south or the other side of Highway 264, say Craddock. There are numerous individuals in our neck of the woods who would love to see a curbside recycling program. Yes, we have large recycling dumpsters over there at the old high school, and I'm pretty sure that when they start tearing that down, those are going to go away. Now, when I lived in Fredericksburg, the city of Fredericksburg provided each home with a small tub along with 2 sets of 2-size bags, large size clear for your yard clippings, small size clear for other recyclable materials, loose materials that could blow out of these buckets. I would love to know if indeed those signs are what is to come or what is already happening in certain areas of Portsmouth. When is that going to come to Craddock? What can we expect in not only Craddock, but the areas not mentioned in those signs? That's all I have.
Okay, thank you for your concern. Let me first of all defer it to our city manager. Mr. Rowe.
Thank you, sir. We briefed council last night, and council concurred on implementing a curbside recycling program, not with a little wash basket type approach, but with a 95-gallon can.
Yes.
Nice.
That will, every home in Portsmouth will get this. Our goal is to put this in effect the 1st of July in the summer. We've got to work hard to get that. We got 35,000 cans to purchase. And at the next council meeting, council will consider an ordinance to appropriate the funds necessary to get the equipment. So council has decided to get into recycling in a very, very big way citywide.
So July 1st, every home in Portsmouth, every water account paying home?
Every home that currently has a trash can.
Perfect. And
I'm going to ask Brian Foster to get your contact information so we can send you more information if that's agreeable with council.
Absolutely.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your concern. I want you to know that this is a bold move and a bold initiative on our part here in the city. A lot of other cities have that program up and running, but from the presentation that was presented to us yesterday and the economics of what this could mean with not only generating enough revenue to be able to pay for all of those containers, so each one of the homeowners would have one, as well as, and to me the most important part is expanding the potential life of our landfill in Craney Island. Right now there's a potential lifespan of 32 years, and this at a minimum could kick it out to 50 years. And if you understand the dynamics of SIPSA and some of the things that are going on region-wide here, landfill space and lifespan is extremely important. So I think every one of us was pleased with the presentation that the manager and his staff gave us, and we're looking forward to that. And it's priceless to see the expression on your face when the manager explained to you that you're in that number. So you're in that number, ma'am. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you very much.
All right, Vice Mayor Cherry.
Thank you. I just want to add for everyone in the audience that this will be done at no additional cost to the homeowners.
That's right. Absolutely. Very good point. Okay, Madam Clerk.
Council members, we have no additional speakers on this item. We're in need of a motion.
Move adoption.
Second.
Mayor, we have a motion and a second, and you'll be voting electronically. This item is adopted 7-0. Members of City Council, for items 13-113 through 13-117, versus me reading all of these items, management has requested deferral, and that deferral date would be until June 11th, your regular meeting. So we're in need of a motion and a second to defer these items.
So moved.
Mayor, we have a motion and a second to defer these items until your June 11th meeting.
Very good. Okay, Ms. Randall.
This item has been deferred by a vote of 7-0.
Okay.
13-118, adoption of a resolution supporting the Norfolk and Portsmouth Beltline Rail Preservation application to the Virginia Department of Rail and Public Transportation for the CSX Connection Track Project. Vision principle, a robust economy for working men and women. We have no speakers. We're in need of a motion.
Move to adopt.
Mayor, we have a motion and a second, and you'll be voting electronically.
Okay. Very good.
This item is adopted 7-0. 13-119, adoption of a resolution supporting the Norfolk Portsmouth Beltline Rail Preservation application to the Virginia Department of Rail and Public Transportation for the mainline cross-tie replacement project. Vision principle, a robust economy for working men and women. Electronic roll call, and I have no registered speakers.
Move for adoption.
Second.
Mayor, we have a motion and a second, and you're voting electronically on this item. This item is adopted 7-0. 13-120, adoption of a resolution authorizing the Department of Public Utilities to exceed by 25% or more the contract with Wiley Wilson for the Portsmouth Dam's alteration designs, vision principle, efficient responsive government. Electronic roll call, and I have no registered speakers.
Dr. Edmonds.
Thank you, Mayor. If the manager doesn't mind, could you just give a little clarification on what that's all about?
Yes, sir. And while I do that, I'm going to ask Brian Foster, who's our Director of Public Utilities, to come forward and add more detail. This relates to our dams at our reservoirs in Suffolk. They have to be inspected, but there are new regulations that relate to those dams, and Brian's going to explain what we're doing in that regard.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Dr. Edmonds, what this is for, about 3 years ago, the state adopted new dam safety regulations that the city has to comply with. We have 3 earthen dams that form our lake system in Suffolk where we get our water supply. They're in perfectly good condition. There's no issues. There's no concern. But we're required to do some upgrades in order to comply with the new regulations. And what's happened was once these regulations were put in place, we contracted with our long-time engineering firm that's worked with us on our dams to help us work through the necessary improvements. And in the course of subsequent General Assembly sessions, they have actually modified those regulations again, fortunately to our benefit. And so by doing some extra engineering work and unfortunately having to redo some work that was already done, by spending an extra $40,000, we'll save $1 million in construction costs. But it requires us to come to council because even though this isn't a very large contract, that extra $40,000 does exceed the original contract by 25%, which is why we're here tonight. But What I would tell you is that's money well spent because it's going to save us a lot more money down the road. And if you need further clarification, I'm happy to answer any additional questions.
Thank you, sir. Good job.
Members of council, there are no registered speakers on this item. We're in need of a motion.
Move adoption.
Mayor, we have a motion and a second, and you're voting electronically. This item is adopted 7-0. 13-121, adoption of a resolution authorizing the purchase of 318 Roberta Street. Vision Principle, Neighborhoods, and Sense of Community, electronic roll call, and I have no registered speakers.
Move for adoption.
Second.
Mayor, we have a motion and a second, and you'll be voting electronically. This item is adopted 7-0. New business, 13-122, boards and commissions. Councilman Moody.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mayor, members of council, the Personnel Committee doesn't have any appointments to announce tonight, but as the Vice Mayor said earlier, we're always in the need of volunteers. There are a few ways that you can volunteer. One is to call the clerk's office directly. The other is you can go online at the city's website, portsmouthva.gov, and actually fill out an application. And there's also information on what each of the boards and commissions consist of. So there are a lot of varied interests. We'd love to have you volunteer. There's a lot of need. And it's a lot of fun being on one of those boards and commissions. So hopefully some folks in the audience will take advantage of that tonight. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
13-123, items submitted by council members. The first item, adoption of a resolution by City Council of the City of Portsmouth, Virginia, restating its opposition to illegal and unconstitutional imposition of tolls on the downtown and midtown tunnels and on the Martin Luther King connector, and declaring its support for pending litigation that seeks a legal determination that the contract allowing such tolls is without legal authority. Electronic roll call, and I have registered speakers. Our first speaker is Mr. Mark Godalda-Gutrovsky.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, honorable members of council, and fellow citizens. Let me say welcome to the fight. A number of citizens in the city for almost a year have been working to overturn the contract with the RC and have dug into our own pockets to fund that. The help and financial support from the city is most welcome in this fight because it's a David and Goliath sort of effort. The people of Portsmouth who are engaged in this versus a well-funded consortium and the resources of the Commonwealth of Virginia. So essentially our own money is fighting us. We need all the help we can get, and it doesn't have to stop at the city limits. Everybody who uses the midtown and downtown tunnels today has a dog in this fight. And it would be nice if they would contribute to the lawsuit so that we would have a fighting chance. We have good counsel. We have probably the best lawyers available in the Commonwealth for an issue of this kind. People with a track record of success in fighting against arrangements that do an end run around the state constitution and impose fees that the legislature has not approved on the citizenry. Let me say that I'm disappointed in the press accounts of what this particular tolling arrangement means. They always base the fare they quote on Easy Pass rates. Easy Pass is a discount rate. The rate for those who are casual users of the tunnels, is 3 times as high. And many people are not going to know exactly what rate they're paying until the bill comes in the mail. After their plates have been photographed, the plates have been verified, validated against the database, and the bills have been mailed out. Those people who come here as tourists will have even less information. If they don't see the sign that will be somewhere along the tunnel route, they're not going to know how much it will cost them until the bill comes. And sticker shock takes effect. Those of us who live here and know about it, we have the opportunity to use Easy Pass, but the part that is not evident to us is the rate at which the toll will increase year over year. Once the tunnels are substantially complete, for the first 10 years, there will be a small increase against which the inflation increase will be applied inexorably year after year. Then at the end of 10 years, that rate that has built up over the first 10 years will also have the inflation rate applied inexorably. At the end of the 58-year term, it's going to be quite large. I won't be here to see it. But those who are will bear the burden relentlessly. So it's quite important that everybody get involved now before this contract takes effect. And I thank you for being part of the fight.
Thank you, sir. Well done.
Our next speaker is Ms. Terry Danaher.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, everybody on council, everybody in the room. Hello. I am a very, very happy person right now, and I've been very happy since I found out this morning that you were going to not deal with the resolutions to hand over the property for the Martin Luther King extension, because that really sends a signal in many ways and does strengthen our case in court. So thank you for that, too. And for the resolution, I'd really love to have you all make sure that the public sees that resolution. It is a brilliant piece of writing and goes right up there with our attorneys' written briefs. It's beautifully done, and I very much appreciate the work that went into that and how it all turned out. I would like to make one correction to what Mark said, which is he said at the beginning that people have been working almost a year on this, and it's actually we have been working over a year on this now. And it has been a long struggle, and it was started by now Senator Kenny Alexander, who hired our attorney. He really knew what was coming down the pike. He obviously had read the agreement thoroughly. And one of the things that came up recently at the February 19th presentation, which was a very, very good presentation by our city staff about the whole project for the Martin Luther King extension part of it anyway. One of the issues that came up at that meeting was the lack of improvements on the other side of the tunnel, which will actually keep it from doing much for us in terms of traffic mitigation. So we are effectively paying $22 billion over the course of the next 6 decades for nothing. And that is a very frustrating thing to have to deal with. The other thing that came up at that meeting that is very important was were the fines. Because, as Mark pointed out, Easy Pass is a discounted rate. It is a rate that is lower than what other people will have to pay if they don't have an Easy Pass. And one of the things that will happen if you do not have an Easy Pass is that you will get a bill for pay-by-plate, which includes a fee. And if you do not pay that within a certain period of time, which I believe is 30 days, you are facing court, and you are facing a $50 fine and court costs. And if you screw up again within a year, you are facing a $100 fine. And then it goes up to $250 and then $500, and then it gets you right at the DMV when you try to renew your license or register your car. So this is a really bad contract for people, because we have a lot of people in this city and in this region who will not have easy passes. And people really need to take that seriously. I got a call from someone who went across the Jordan Bridge without an easy pass. And she was explaining that she had a bill sent to her vacation place on Lake Gaston, I think it is. So she didn't get the bill in time to pay it within the 30 days. And in addition, the Jordan Bridge was advertised as being free those weekends. They were giving us a break. What they didn't advertise was that the free was only for Easy Pass people. So she got a bill for the fee of going back and forth across the bridge, which I believe is $4 each way if you don't have an Easy Pass, and I think a $20 administrative fee, and a threat of additional fines if she didn't pay more. And I could be lowballing this. I mean, it was quite a wake-up call. And she was busy fighting this in telephone conversations. And, of course, you have to go from this phone call to that phone call to that phone call. And she's a tenacious person. She's a fighter. But not everybody has the time or the energy or the knowledge to do that sort of thing. And we could be dealing with a lot of people in this city who are really, they will be underwater so fast, it's not even funny. And that's not dealing with the tunnel at all. So please accept my congratulations for getting on board with us, and my thanks. And I look forward to working with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for your work.
Members of council, there are no additional speakers on this particular item.
Second.
Mayor, we have a motion and a second, and you're voting electronically.
Very good. Got to vote.
This item is adopted 7-0. Part 2, adoption of an ordinance appropriating the sum of $200,000 in the FY 2012-13 General Fund for the cost of a disparity study regarding minority and women-owned business enterprises. Electronic roll call, and I have registered speakers. Our first speaker is Mrs. Gwen Davis.
Good evening, Mayor, members of City Council. My name is Gwendolyn Davis. Hi, Ms. Randall. I represent an organization called Equipping Businesses for Success Institute. We have been working since 2008 to get the state to do the same thing that you all are doing. We were very successful in acquiring the funding for the state's disparity study. The results of that study were alarming. It showed that women and minorities in the Commonwealth of Virginia, we have about 12,000 state-certified women and minority-owned businesses, receive only 1.50% of nearly $5 billion spent by the state every year in procurement contracts. We know that this is just not fair, and it's not just, and a lot of people from our region, Hampton Roads, have been working with us, our clergy have been working with us, and we appreciate what they have helped us to achieve in Richmond. It's not over. A bill was introduced in the General Assembly session, but we just thank God for you, because you see the need to address a serious, serious problem. When small businesses create 1 in 4 jobs in this country. And when you look at urban areas like Portsmouth, a lot of the areas in Hampton Roads, you see a disproportionate amount of unemployment in urban areas. And if you don't have strong, viable small businesses, meaning women and minority-owned businesses as well, you're going to lack those good jobs, good paying jobs, and I think the benefits of having real successful, strong businesses in your community. So I have a lot of people here tonight with us who have been working with us for a long time, and we have not just business owners, but citizens too, that have traveled with us to Richmond to help us with this issue. And I would like for them to stand at this time and say thank you to our City Council. We appreciate it.
to the barn, isn't it?
They're on the wall in the back, too. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Our next speaker is Mr. Bruce Williams.
Your Honor, Mr. Mayor, distinguished members of council, good evening.
Good evening.
Today is a historic day. Mr. Mayor, you spoke of fairness, and it should be remembered in our history as an African American. Dr. King died on an economic mission in Memphis. He was there to support the low income, low salaries of garbage men, and that's where he passed. That's where he was assassinated. On a quest to say that it's not good enough to be able to go into the store, you have to have the money to buy something. We at the Hampton Roads Committee, 200 plus men, adopted a resolution in April of 2011, realizing that as economic justice, it was important that the region, Hampton Roads, do the proper study to see what the disparities were in each city in Hampton Roads and do something about fixing it. And I must say, I'm proud to be here in Portsmouth today as the Economic Justice Vice President, speaking for my President, James Gray, of the Hampton Roads, 200 plus men, say Portsmouth's leading the way. Your school board not only did a study, but is now taking affirmative actions to make sure that small and women-owned firms, minority-owned firms are getting the kind of access and transparency and help to get access to do quality work for the school board. I look forward to the city of Portsmouth doing the same thing. Very proud to be here, and I'd like to have the members of 200 plus men who are here this evening to stand in support of this historic ordinance you're about to pass.
Thank you.
We applaud you.
Thank you very much. Let me just say I want to applaud you and everyone here who has worked in this effort. As she stated, that nationwide, you said 1 out of 4 jobs are small business. I believe in Hampton Roads, every 2 out of 3 jobs go to a small business owner. And again, the work that you've put in, the city of Hampton, some of us mayors have been talking about a regional study. We've talked and talked and talked, and we haven't gotten there. So again, you're right. This needs to be a regional approach. We hope everyone else chime in because, again, the boundaries in this Hampton Roads region of 1.7 million people, people cross them every day, and to be able to make sure we can provide opportunity and fairness for anyone who's capable of doing the job. I think I was talking to someone on the school board about a roofing contract with one of the schools, and I think one of the goals were set was only 15%. And the developer or the master contractor exceeded it by like 25 or 26%. Don't know all those exact numbers, but again, as soon as you make those things aware to people, I mean, folks are here to do the work, and we're glad to be able to, in this city, to say that we believe in fairness and we want to see this throughout our region. So thank each and every one of you. Madam Clerk.
Yes, sir. Members of council, we have no additional speakers. We're in need of a motion.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Mayor, we have a motion and a second, and you'll be voting electronically. This item is adopted 7-0. (13-124) report on pending items. There is no report this evening. 13-125 non-agenda speakers, and I'd like to. I'm sorry, Councilman Moody.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, sir. Councilman Moody.
I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mayor. Members of council, we're certainly aware that tonight we're back to gavel coverage. Don't know how many in the audience were aware of that, and that's a good thing. But I would like to get support to add an item to the agenda that would direct the city attorney to add gavel-to-gavel coverage of our monthly meetings to council's rules of order and procedure, and bring it back to us at our next meeting to take action on it. I think it's important that gavel-to-gavel coverage that many citizens depend on, and many of those who are unable to get to these meetings, in some cases physical challenges, I think it's very important that they have that access, and that a future council or this council on a political discord pulls the plug on it. So if we add it to the council's rules and procedures, at least it will require an explanation and a public vote as to why we're pulling the plug next time. So I guess my first item, Mayor, is to, I move that the item be added to the agenda.
Mr. If I could, I totally agree with what we're about to do here, but I would like to think it would be in order not only with this rule and procedure and guidelines, but others that we need to revisit, because the analogy that you're using now for that is the same analogy for our hiring practices here in the city, that we do that. So I would like, if it's okay with this council, at our retreat this spring, that we revisit all of these and make sure that we don't just cherry pick the ones we like and don't like and things. I agree. We need the public to weigh in, and they should weigh in on everything. And I'm a firm believer in that. But I don't want us to start picking and choosing which ones we want to do now right away. I think it's important that we as a body look at all of our procedures and look at the guidelines as to how we operate, so we don't have these type of snafus. I'm telling you, a procedure and an operating procedure in place would have not caused the havoc that we've had in these last 2 weeks in this city behind hiring practices and how we do and don't do things. And so I would, if it's okay with this council, that we defer that and take on all of these in again, in a retreat setting where we can look at these things all on the table and come out afresh. So, Dr. Edmonds.
I agree with you on that, Mayor. We shouldn't just do that like this now. I think we should have a time where we can look at a whole lot of other issues as well. Thank you.
Mayor, I think you're comparing apples with oranges, quite frankly. I think the other perhaps needs to be addressed, but I don't see any benefit in keeping this to July. In fact, if you go back to the last retreat this council had, we have some things that we agreed upon that haven't been done. You know, you keep talking about fairness. I don't think the appointments tonight were unfair. Those two gentlemen were proven commodities, proven track records, so they were treated fairly. And I don't think it was a racial thing. Those who think this council is divided among racial lines don't spend a lot of time looking at this council. Philosophical lines, yes, but that's probably with any elected body on any given day or any given vote. But to send a signal out to this region that somehow our action tonight, and you spent a lot of time talking about a racial discord, which I think is the wrong signal to be sending out. I think we get along fine as a council. I'll defer my motion to the retreat, but I still think you're comparing apples with oranges on this.
Thank you, sir.
And I can understand why, because I think you were the impetus behind pulling the plug on the agenda meetings.
Thank you, Councilman Moody. Vice Mayor Cherry.
Well, I don't know if I need to say it now, Mayor. I was just going to say that I support the idea of us discussing this and other issues at the retreat, because I don't think we need to start just throwing stuff on the agenda that we haven't had the opportunity as a body to discuss. It puts us at a disadvantage, not having the opportunity to share our ideas and thoughts on the process. So to discuss at a retreat or some other time, work session, et cetera, would be better for me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Randall.
I feel as if, Michael, I feel as if we are here as servants of the people to follow the rulings according to what they dictate to us to do. And at the same time, if something is not according to protocol, according to the members that were elected by our citizenry. If someone brings it to our attention, I think we should address it. We are the servants of the people, by the people, and for the people. And I don't feel as if the individuals would have called that to our attention if there was not a need. And I think with the issues that we are facing today and now, there is a need for some clarity.
Thank you very much. Ms. Simmons?
Thank you, Mayor. Although I would have agreed with Mr. Moody, I agree with all of you. We are operating under rules of order and procedure that were amended in December of 2011 and operating guidelines that were revised October 4th of 2005. So it is well past time to review these rules of order and make sure the public understands what the rules and procedures are we hold ourselves to and the citizens to, particularly when it involves their role in these proceedings and these meetings. Because it's not fair if everybody doesn't know what the rules are going into it. But going into a retreat, which I'm looking forward to, is fine.
Right. Thank you.
And fix them all.
Okay. We still, Councilman Moody.
I'll remove my motion as long as it'll be discussed at the upcoming retreat.
Absolutely.
What is the date of that retreat?
We're going to, all of that is in motion, Mr. Moody. We will.
There
trust
is no
me.
date. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Okay, are we still here on, I got a couple of real brief items before we move on. I just want to congratulate Ida Kay for doing an outstanding job in our Currents this weekend, recognizing the Women's History Month and talking in great detail about one of the local organizations here, the Links chapter of Portsmouth, and they'll be recognizing 11 females for their heroic service. And I would like to briefly, if I could, and I'll butcher at least 3 of these names, but my heart's in the right place. Retired U.S. Army Lieutenant Colonel Shanandrella M. Dickens, Sanjay C. Harrison, who's an assistant principal and was a lieutenant in the Navy, U.S. Navy Senior Officer, Chief Petty Officer Frida S. Bryant, U.S. Army SP4 Joyce Lewis Carcana, U.S. Army Force Master Sergeant Cheryl M. Hawkins, U.S. Army Corporal Charlotte V. Parker, and U.S. Marine Corps Captain Millie G. Wilkerson, U.S. Marine Corps Lieutenant Colonel Denise T. Faircloth Williams, U.S. Coast Guard Lieutenant Brenda K. Walter, U.S. Air Force Major Jonah Dean Waltering, and finally, and definitely not least, U.S. Navy Petty Officer First Class Diana Woods. I want to congratulate, first of all, Ms. Ada Kay. If you haven't read the Currents this past weekend, please read it, and the chapter of the Links for recognizing these outstanding women, and absolutely.
Yeah. And you have some of your links in here.
And the second note, I have one other bit of good news, and you know I love this time for good news. We received an email from Miss Keely Dowdy from Portsmouth Christian School, and she wanted to let us know that they over at Portsmouth Christian has put us on the map nationally. Her cheerleaders won the Christian Cheerleaders of America National Cheerleading Competition, and she wanted to let us know that they competed with teams from Alexandria, Virginia, Jacksonville, Florida, San Francisco, California, and Raleigh, North Carolina, and several cities in Texas. So I want to give a round of applause to these young ladies at Portsmouth Christian. And keep up the great work. Madam Clerk, thank you.
Yes, sir. Item 13-125, non-agenda speakers. Our first speaker is Senator L. Louise Lucas.
Mayor Wright, Vice Mayor Cherry, members of council, Mr. Manager Rowe, City Attorney, and members of the management team. The reason I'm here this evening is threefold. First of which is to remind you all that it was, and soon will be, 30 years ago when I took my seat, where many of you are sitting right now, after the good citizens of Portsmouth elected me to serve on the Portsmouth City Council. George Hanbury was the city manager then. And this is that picture. Tip Carprew, the Reverend Ben A. Beamer, Dr. Holly, and you can see the names of the others. And as you can see back then, I had black hair. But I caution you not to let this gray hair fool you. When I took my seat on the Portsmouth City Council, it's no mistake that I was a novice at that time. Politically speaking, I was a rookie. So when I see newcomers making dumb mistakes, I would like to offer them a bit of friendly advice, but I dare not do that, and for all of the obvious reasons. At the same time, I'm reminded that my understanding of this form of government was enhanced when George Hanbury, and to his credit, sent me and other members of the City Council off to Monticello to Mr. Jefferson School for newly elected officials. And I'm sure in that class, at that time, it was who is now Judge Whitlow attended that class. On the next council, who is now Judge Hawks, perhaps attended that class. And I'm fairly certain that those of you who remember the Honorable Lee King probably attended that class. Again, the picture of me in 1984 with black hair. Now, Mr. Mayor and members of council, going off to Mr. Jefferson School reminded me that my understanding of this form of government was enhanced when George Hanbury, again to his credit, sent me off to attend those classes. And what he provided for us was a more educated and better informed city council. Yes, we had our differences of opinion, and that is a matter of public record. Nevertheless, we were constantly reminded that we do not have a ward system here in the city of Portsmouth, and that we were all elected to represent all the citizens of Portsmouth, whether they voted for us or not. And that included the so-called special interest groups, whoever they are. You see, I've never met them. So I don't know who these special interest groups are that we oftentimes refer to. After taking my oath of office, I was constantly reminded of the rule of respect. And that is, you don't have to love your colleagues. In fact, you don't even have to like them. But you are required to respect the office which they were elected to hold. Because many of the same citizens who voted for them may very well have voted for you. Mayor Wright, members of council, coming to the 6th floor of City Hall is not one of my favorite pastimes. So I'm usually here before this council at the beginning of the General Assembly session and after the veto session, and that is to provide a legislative update, which will include your request and bills that I carried during the General Assembly. Otherwise, I cannot recall even a half dozen times over the last 22 years that I have served in the Senate of Virginia that I have been in this chamber or on a telephone with any one of you in an attempt to influence your vote on any issue coming before this council. So for anyone to say that I have too much sway over this city council, I can only say to them, someone lied to you. Someone lied to you, because they certainly would not have allowed some of the stuff that has transpired here on this city council had they asked for my input. Now, this is where I segue into the second reason that I'm here tonight. And I promise not to trespass on your time very much longer. True or false? I feel great pain every time I hear members of the House of Delegates say, and I quote, not only is Portsmouth not a business-friendly environment, it is downright onerous. With that said, if you believe that perception is reality, I submit to you that the public perception of this city council has been seriously damaged. Not just in the eyes of the people who live here, but throughout the Hampton Roads area and beyond. Members of council, our citizens need to have their trust in governing body restored. And in my humble opinion, Many of them feel the same sadness that I do. Many of them feel the same anger that I do. And many of them also would like to see you act like adults and do the job that we elected you to do, instead of all of the foolishness that we've been watching. Mayor, if my time is up, I will quit, but I do have some more I'd like to say.
Thank you very much, Oman. We only have a time limit, but I would like to ask you, since you are here, if you could briefly give us a real recap. What has transpired during this session and a lot of the things, we've actually gone up and seen you and our whole delegation at work. And I want to tell you, we are extremely proud of what you have done and the things that you and our delegation has tried to represent Portsmouth in an honorable way. Mr. Rowe and I went up on Local Governments Day and spent the whole day going from hearing to hearing and watching you in action. So not to belabor what your speech, but I really would like the audience, if you could, to just a little, especially, I think there was a piece on the toll mitigation.
Absolutely.
That we tried to run through that we weren't successful, but if
Absolutely.
you could.
There were several initiatives that were introduced to mitigate the tolls. And Mayor, as you all remember, it was last year when I was successful as one of the senior-most members of the Senate Finance Committee. I've been there long enough now that there are only 3 people who served there longer than I had. In another 5 years, I'll probably be number 1 or number 2. And I take that seriously. And because of that, I was able to get $100 million out of the state budget to defer the tolls until 2014 while we waited to get the lawsuit in place. But I went back this year to try to look for, and that did not come easily, especially in light of the fact that Northern Virginia had put in for the same amount of money. And how is it that I managed to get my $100 million in the budget for Portsmouth and Hampton Roads, and Northern Virginia was not able to get theirs? I fought like there was no tomorrow, and you all know it. And each of us who were involved in the process of trying to mitigate the tolls, each of us decided we would take a different role, just as you would as if you had a military. So Kenny Alexander and the group decided that they would go forward with the lawsuit. We agreed that because I am one of the senior-most members of finance, that I was the only one who could get $100 million out of the budget in the first place. So there was a method to that madness. So while people run around and talk about who did what and who did not do what, Mr. Mayor, you and Mr. Manager John Rowe, as you all know, he and I were seatmates when we served on the Hampton Roads Planning District Commission together 30 years ago. We sat together for 4 years. I know John Rowe. You were there when we were fighting for these issues. You were there when these transportation votes were taken. Now, even though Senator Wagner and Delegate Chris Jones got the credit in the newspaper for the transportation bill that was passed, I just showed it to my dear friend, our clerk of court, Cynthia Morrison, that it was a 25-15 vote. And that was with 12 Republicans voting against it. Had it not been for Democrats, you would not have a transportation bill right now. So let's be real clear about who's working for you. Some of the folks who live right here in this city, who represent you in the General Assembly, voted against the transportation package. Look up the names. You'll see who those folks are. So while people are running around talking about who is doing what and who is not doing what, when I leave to go to the General Assembly, I go there to work like the devil for this city council, for when you give me bills to carry for you, as I do for the other 11 political jurisdictions that I serve. And it's for that reason that I really resent it, coming back home and seeing my name all over the newspaper, enthralled in all of the stuff that was going on down here. Not only was it an embarrassment, but I was hurt. So I'm here to share with you one of the great lessons of politics that has served me well. It is that it's a vocal minority who comes and speaks before you, but it is a silent majority who is watching you, and it is those people who will meet you at the ballot box.
Thank you, Senator. Good night. You got a question there? And thank you for your service. Madam Clerk.
Our next speaker is Mrs. Cynthia Morrison.
Good evening, Mayor Wright, Vice Mayor Cherry, members of council, City Manager, Mr. Rowe, City Attorney, Mr. Wilson, and staff. I am Cynthia Peyton Morrison, and I reside at 4320 Midfield Parkway, Portsmouth, Virginia. I currently serve the City of Portsmouth as clerk of the Circuit Court. I am before you this evening to address what is a fundamental right of every American citizen. In a democracy where citizens elect the persons to hold office, the citizens have a right to address their elected officials. This right extends to citizens who agree with the decisions and citizens that may disagree with the decisions of this council. It is my expectation that respect is due to the council and respect is also due to the citizen. In a democracy, citizens should not be threatened by a member of the governing body because they disagree with a decision that this council has made. Citizen groups have a right to lobby council in support of their specific positions. This is a most effective way for the masses to express their desires to the governing body. A part of our open governance allows for freedom to express one's position without having to worry about retaliation from the very people that you have elected to serve the good of the community. I find it disturbing and unsettling that a member of council would find it necessary to launch a personal attack on a citizen and on an institution that plays a very important and fundamental role within the history of this country and this community. Many of the issues that citizens have had with government have been effectively challenged with the assistance of the church. The end result has been the enactment of laws that have resulted in an environment within this country that speaks to the equality of all citizens, regardless of race, creed, gender, or religion. These are basic concepts that have made America a leader in freedom and democracy throughout the world. I would ask this council to be sensitive to these basic rights of citizens. After all, as public servants, we are here to serve the people. I was taught at an early age that silence gives consent. And I would like to publicly state that I disagree with this behavior.
Our next speaker is Dr. Elizabeth Daniels.
Okay. I'm Dr. Elizabeth Daniels, 1502 Belafonte Drive in Portsmouth. Mayor Wright, Vice Mayor Cherry, and City Council members. There's a saying that if you don't know your history, you're doomed to repeat it. I'm going to give you some history that I hope will not get repeated as a result of having given it to you. As a school board member, I can remember when Attorney Wilson was the school board attorney until recently. You might ask him why he stopped being the school board attorney, and you might also ask him for the annual evaluations he got from the school board. The one thing that stands out in my mind when something was done that I think is extremely unethical was the school board members, one group was charging another group with improper behavior and handling issues that they did not handle properly. And Attorney Wilson helped one group fight against the other group. Of course, he was a school board attorney for all of us. So one group got their own attorney, the other group should have gotten theirs instead of having him to do it. If you vote to have something done in court and authorize the attorney to do it, that's one thing. There was never a vote, it was never on the agenda, and no one asked the attorney or gave the attorney permission to come to court to do anything for either group. The temporary injunction was gotten by the group, and it happened to be just by chance all African American, and the other group happened to be all white. And everybody in the state was asking me what's going on because both candidates, superintendent, were white. So we can't say it was racist. Okay, so but anyway, they, Wilson came and went against the group that happened to be black, was the minority group. However, we won what we were after because we got the superintendent. That was a very good superintendent instead of getting the one which was not qualified, that they had sent off a letter to get his qualifications waived without ever voting on it in public, without it ever being on the agenda for us to do. And I think most people never knew what was going on until the court case came up because it was never a public issue, and that's what it's supposed to be. All of our votes, we can do things in closed session, but the voting must be done in open session, and this was never voted on. And I don't see how the school board attorney did not know that. So when he represented them, he knew he was trying to help them do something they should not have done. Fortunately, we won. We got a superintendent we are proud of and who's done much for the schools instead of getting one that was not qualified.
Thank you, Dr. Davis.
Our next speaker is Mr. Marcus Sweat.
Good evening, Mayor Wright, Council. My name is Marcus Sweat. I live at 217 Franklin Avenue. I've grew up in Portsmouth 27 years. Love Portsmouth. I am Portsmouth, if you ask me. But I stand here tonight kind of ashamed because sitting here in the city council, looking at the revenue coming in. I grew up in the politics of Portsmouth. My mother, Deborah Sweat, has helped many and grew up with many on this board tonight. But there's one thing I don't see happening. This city needs another hospital. Maryview, I cannot blame Bon Secures for what is going on, but I can blame the city for not at least trying to put another hospital in here. A lot of us cannot make it to Norfolk or to Oversea or to Harborview. All we have is Maryview. And I can blame them for not trying their best, but I can also blame you all for not taking the pressure off of Maryview by having another hospital. My wife, my children, I'm trying to teach my children to this day, this is our city. Love it. Enjoy it. I've seen it go through its bad and its good. True, I'm only 27 years old. I've seen more good here lately. But I would like to see something good for the people, not for the pockets. I would like to see another hospital. I understand the mayor's ball is a great thing to go through. I would love to go to it one day. But that money that you all are using can also be put into another hospital. I'm getting tired of seeing elderly patients sit in a hospital and don't have anywhere else to go. I would love to see our children not have to go to CHKD, go to the proper care in Portsmouth. Portsmouth General wasn't the best, but it was ours. We called it, we claimed it. That is our hospital, not Maryview. Portsmouth General was ours. And I will wonder, when will be the day that we will have another hospital that is ours? God looks over the world. It's your responsibility to look over the citizens. And if my vote doesn't count tonight on my word, I will be back next Tuesday. And again after that, and again after that. I don't have to work on Tuesday, so I have nowhere else to go. I will wonder why don't we have the chance, with all this revenue coming in, Walmart, everybody lives in Walmart. Why can't we have the chance to build a new hospital? I'm getting tired of having to send my kids and my wife all the way to Harborview because they cannot be seen at Maryview. Or my mother has to go to Norfolk General to get the proper care that she needs because she can't get help at Maryview. Or as my generation likes to call it, Murderview. Portsmouth General was the only hospital that a person could get to in walking distance. Very possible and very quickly. And like I said, I will be here every day until, I guess you invite me to Sunday dinner. Because I'm not going to stop for this fight. I'm not speaking only for myself, I'm speaking for the citizens of Portsmouth. We all are crying for another hospital. So with that being said, I hope you all have a blessed evening. I'm not even going to wait for the light in the ding. I just need to say that. And I hope you all hear what I'm saying, because like I said, I will be back next week, because we do need another hospital. Thank you.
Let me, Mr. Sweat, sir, if you would come back up. Let me just, first of all, thank you for your concern. Yes, sir. And just to shed a little light, when it comes in terms of collaboration, the city manager and I had the great fortune about 2 weeks ago of going over to the Naval Medical Center and meeting with Admiral Wagner and talking about a lot of things. And collaboration was one, and being able to utilize that hospital to do some things. So there's some restrictions now that they can't do that they would like to do. They kind of shared some things with us that was very encouraging. And Mr. Rowe, I don't know if you want to share anything else on that matter, but collaboration and being able to have proper coverage throughout the Hampton Roads region and not be in a competitive mode, but making sure we can supply those services. So I'm pleased that you came with your concern tonight, but this was just only been maybe 2 weeks ago when the manager and I went over to the Portsmouth Naval Medical Center, and that topic was front and center. Mr. Rowe?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to ask Brandon Godfrey to get your contact information so that we can talk with you about what we learned at the Naval Hospital. And so as you approach your seat, one of our deputy city managers will ask you for your name and address so that we can work with you.
Thank you. And not that we don't want to see you every Tuesday, but we appreciate your tenacity, sir. Have a good night. Thank you. Councilman Moody.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Sweat, that's all right. You can hear me from here. I think your question was, why doesn't the city build a hospital? And, you know, actually, the state controls that to a large degree. I believe a certificate of need has to be requested. Plus, hospitals nowadays are big business. Bon Secours, Centera, Hospital Corporation of America, etc. And they're usually built by the private sector, not municipalities. I was born in the other hospital in Portsmouth, Portsmouth General. I think it was called King's Daughters back in the day. And they did a great job. Unfortunately, they were purchased by Bon Secours, and consequently it was closed, as you probably recall. But there is a process involved in even for the private sector. Just can't come in and build a hospital. The good senator knows more about that process than I do from the state standpoint. So there is a permit process, but I too appreciate your tenacity and your willingness to come here to speak to the issue. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Madam Clerk.
Our next speaker is Mr. Lee Cherry.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council, Mr. Rowe, Mr. Wilson, congratulations, Sergeant at Arms. Pardon me, I've got to losing my voice a little bit. I am very pleased to hear that you've gone to gavel again. What I'd come to you with was to tell you about an experience last night. Last night I was at the Wise Beach Civic League. And after they did what they normally do in these civic leagues, the fire department got up, and as you know, they're going to just about all of the civic leagues now, and they talked about the various programs they have. Programs where they're serving seniors and others by checking fire alarms and smoke detectors and that type of thing. And there's no doubt in my mind that a lot of lives in the city have been saved. Mike Senakowski, who had been under the weather, and maybe I caught what he's got, was there to talk about the PAL program, the Police Athletic League, which is a great program that takes these kids off the street and they get mentored, and it gets them off the street, and it gets you involved in athletics. I had a piece where I talked a little bit about seniors and talked about our ongoing plan right now to renovate the ball fields throughout the city to get ready for baseball and softball season coming up. It dawned on me afterwards, as I harkened back to a remark that Councilwoman Simmons had made back when the discussion was going on about the agenda and the taping, that so much of the information that our seniors would get from hearing that and the programs was being lost. But I would also say it's not just the seniors. That information is for the working parents, the mothers, the fathers that are at home taking care of the kids after a long work day. So not knowing you were going back to gavel, I came with a proposal, but it still may have some merit to it. And that was simply this, that if the city manager or council would design at each meeting a time spot, maybe 5 minutes each, where you would bring the various service agencies before this council, using this forum to talk only and specifically, and I'm making that clear, Mayor, so it's not up here talking about anything the council may be doing, but specifically about the programs that they offer with the information, whether it's fire or police with the program that they have where they go out and do home surveys and that type of thing, the sheriff's office, and then I'll look at the other things, social services, the health programs that we have in this city. There's a myriad of things that makes Portsmouth special, but one of them is that we care about each other. And I think we do that better than any other city. But it doesn't do any good if our citizens don't know about the programs and don't know how to get in touch with them. So that was the sum and substance of my talk tonight, not knowing it was going to gavel. But I still think it has some merit that the city manager could call the various agencies and say, hey, at this coming Tuesday meeting, would you speak and would you speak? And it would be scheduled accordingly. But the more information we get to our citizens, the better we can serve them. And like I said, there are a lot of programs out there that are currently helping an awful lot of people in this city. And with that, I'll answer any questions and bid you a good night.
Thank you, Lieutenant. Good night.
Yes, sir.
Our next speaker is Mr. Steve Carroll.
No, Mr. Cherry got it from me. So I apologize for my voice tonight. My name's Steve Carroll. I reside at 3112 River Edge Drive. Tonight, I'm going to address the recent grand jury report on the school board conduct. And you're being handed a section of that report. I'm going to start with page 3. The grand jury has spoken. I'm not going to dwell on this any longer. I do have a point to be made. And I'm going to quote from that report beginning with page 3. It is at least the unreserved funds with this special grand jury, which this special grand jury believes the school board was obligated to return to the city at the end of the fiscal year. They were clearly unexpended as referred to in Virginia Code 22.1-100, the city charter, and the 2001 City Council resolution. While that resolution would provide for returning 75% of those funds to the school board for a specific capital project, or more should further resolution provide for a different amount, the failure of the school board to return those funds to the city with a request for reappropriation violated both the state statutory scheme and local legal requirements. Although these violations are not defined as criminal in nature, they allowed the school board to circumvent the proper authorization procedures which allow the city council to carefully consider the advisability and feasibility of proposed capital projects in a public forum. All of the evidence received by this special grand jury, of all of the evidence, 2 pieces of evidence suggest a conscious decision by the superintendent of schools, David Stuckwich, to circumvent the budget process with regard to the school construction fund. First, the Director of Finance for the Portsmouth School Board, Mira Fallentanker, testified to what became known as the Stuckwich Initiative, which was a calculated plan to carve out funds from the school board's general fund largely via attrition and divert them to the school construction fund in order to fund capital improvements for which the city council declined to appropriate money through the normal budget process. And I'll go on quoting to the end, this special grand jury finds council's failure to be aware of the fact that these unexpended funds, particularly those which were unencumbered, existed at the end of each fiscal year dating back to at least as early as 2007 to be irresponsible. Did anyone at the school board think that the money that they circumvented wasn't precious to other people in this city? Wasn't it precious also to improve the roads, to improve our neighborhoods, fire and police service, these programs that Lieutenant Cherry just spoke of? The school board had no right to do that. And Mayor, I agree. You stated that we should conduct ourselves with rules and regulations. I would like to see this council pass a resolution to put teeth in the current state law that apparently doesn't have any teeth, to make sure that in the future we discourage the kind of fiscal policy the school board enacted in, and that's to make criminal misappropriation of the funds or the circumvention of those funds without your approval. And in a sea of turmoil, I want to point this out. There are four individuals that are a shining spot in the city. Mrs. Waters, Mrs. Ford, and Mrs. Sherrod. Every time I call up here to speak, they are nothing but polite and kind and helpful and courteous. And I find that a bright spot over what I've seen the last 6 months. And furthermore, Mrs. Swindell is owed an enormous gratitude from the citizens of this city for having the courage to speak up and find what the school board was doing. And I wonder, had she not caught it, would they continue to be doing this today? I thank you, Mrs. Swindell. If the council finds school board's conduct acceptable, I can tell you this: Portsmouth will not be the city that my daughters and my grandchildren reside in. I've lived here all of my life, and I work hard to come up here and make this city a better place. But I will not let my children live here under those conditions.
Thank you, sir.
Our next speaker, excuse me.
Councilman Meeks.
The council is looking at going to categorize budgeting and the way we appropriate the money, so we will have a tighter overlook on the funds. Last year was still funds that should have been turned back to the city. You could get the CAFR. You can look at the 667% of the employee benefit that they overpaid by $6.5 million. The OPEB. Then also they had about 7.3 in the construction fund that the city should have, and they had about 8.6 in a general fund balance that should have came back. All the incumbents should come back to the city. And I think we have a council that's going to make sure that doesn't happen again. So you definitely have watchdogs looking over that.
Yes, sir, you do have watchdogs. That's us. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Meeks. Madam Clerk.
Ms. Pat Simons.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members. Congratulations, Mr. Rowe and Mr. Wilson, and to Mr. Thomas, I believe it is, the new auditor. My name is Pat Simons, and I reside in Mimosa Cove. I'm going to follow Steve and continue with the findings and conclusions from the report of the special grand jury. It states, while this special grand jury remains optimistic that this recent action represents recognition by the school board, its superintendent, and city council of their obligations, as well as a newfound understanding of the proper accounting and legal requirements regarding excess funds, additional safeguards, as detailed below, should be instituted to ensure continued adherence to these principles. Conclusions and recommendations. The special grand jury unanimously recommends the following changes be made by Portsmouth City Council when funding the Portsmouth School Board. A, appropriation of funds to the Portsmouth School Board by Portsmouth City Council should be accomplished by adopting Section 22.1-115 of the Code of Virginia, 1950, as amended, as the method by which funds are allocated for use by the Portsmouth school system. That is, funding to the school board should be by category and not by lump sum. B, Portsmouth City Council should conduct quarterly reviews of school board financial records to stay apprised of the year-to-date expenditures and available resources. Now, I find it very disturbing and upsetting that this council has had no workshop discussions. We had a whole grand jury report that found you irresponsible, and I haven't heard you talk about it in any workshop. I've heard one council member state that you're going to look at appropriating to the school board by category. I haven't heard one of you ask the city manager to make sure his budget reflects that, his new budget. He's been working on this budget for a while. I think normally they start in October, November. And I haven't heard any one of you instruct him to do that. Maybe it's something that was not done in the open, but I would like to see some consensus in a workshop that we all agree this needs to happen. Because, I mean, this is a grand jury. You know, I mean, or do you not take them seriously? They've gave recommendations, and I should think it would be something to consider. And as Ms. Randall is fond of saying, we are not going to sweep anything under the table. I heard her say that many, many times. So I want to see this not get swept up under a table somewhere. And I hope that you please consider utilizing the skills of this new auditor, Mr. Thomas. Make sure he has access to every school record. He's going to work for you, and he can do more. This new employee can do more to help this council than anybody else. And I want to see you give him the opportunity to do that. Don't just hire him and give him nothing to do, because there is plenty he could bring to light. The other thing, I want to thank you for restoring the citizens' faith in your ability to lead us. By turning the cameras back on. I did have, but I'm not going to turn them in today now, a little over 600 signatures that citizens have done in a petition to get you to return that back on. But I'll hang on to those in case, well, Mr. Moody, you weren't successful in getting some agreement going, so we might need those yet again in the future. The other thing I want to say, the next legislative package that gets sent to the state needs to include something about the criminal laws, because the grand jury report says that the school board and the superintendent did not follow the law, but yet there wasn't anything in the criminal code to charge them with. And something needs to be in that next legislative package to address this issue, because it's very serious. If I break the law and I'm speeding and Mr. Hargis, gentleman, picks me up, I go to court.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Councilman Meeks.
I'd like to get Mr. Rowe to kind of tell her what our new relationship with the school board and how we're working on some of the things, if you don't mind.
Mr. Rowe, is that a work in progress, or is that something you can speak on now?
It's a work in progress, and we're meeting frequently with the school superintendent and their director of finance and the finance staff to include purchasing.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Mr. Moody.
Thank you, Mayor. Ms. Simons, you mentioned the independent auditor, Mr. Thomas. I think he'll certainly be a help to this council. But I think the roadmap to the school budget is the CAFR. It probably remains to be seen how much access we can have to their books. They're their own elected body, and excuse me. I hope I'm not catching what everybody says they haven't here tonight, but they're their own elected body, and we can't send one of our appointees in to say, hey, go to the school board and let's look through their books. I hope the relationship that Mr. Rowe is speaking of will foster a high degree of trust. It was mentioned that some of the school's activities were the result of the lack of trust between the two bodies. That we have to fix. It has to be fixed at the top, then it'll filter on down, and I'm confident that Dr. Stuckwish and Mr. Rowe will be able to foster that trust that will be reflected in avoiding these types of things that we had here tonight. I do think trust was at the root of that, and there was a lack of it on both entities. So that's got to improve. And I think Mr. Rowe has certainly seen that grand jury report that we have as well, and those recommendations, I'm certain, will not be missed when he drafts a budget for us.
Well, based on the fact that Mr. Rowe is now working very closely with them on things like purchasing and health insurance and everything,
Right.
It's going to bring a certain merge on a lot of things within that budget that they have. And I don't see why a city auditor would not be able to have access to that based on this merging that's going on. But just always remember, God has very good eyes, and he sees everything, and he has a very good memory.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk?
Ms. Dolores Knight.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council, City Manager, and City Attorney. Congratulations to you two. My name is Dolores Knight. I reside in Craddock, and I am here tonight to provide information as reported in the findings and conclusions from the report of the special grand jury on activities regarding the funding and expenditures by the Portsmouth Public Schools. By appropriating funds to the school board by lump sum, City Council allowed the school board to divert money and expend funds on other than their original purpose. Bonds had previously been issued to fund capital improvements, but no new bond funds would be available for several years. Additionally, student enrollment declined, which meant lower non-local funding as state and federal funds are tied to student enrollment. When the school board was advised that there were a decrease in funding for the capital repairs and construction at both the state and local levels, they began to look for ways to save money to fill this gap. One sufficient means by which they did this was through rehabilitation for non-speaking staff, as well as some augmentation of teaching staff and combining the classes due to declining enrollment. Since employees' salary and benefits constituted a substantial part of the overall school budget, the major classifications appropriation was not done by Portsmouth City Council, which enabled the school board to redirect funds from the general fund to the school construction fund without either consent or knowledge of the governing body. The school board and the superintendent were therefore able to develop a scheme by which they could build funds in the school construction fund, which they otherwise would not have had available for their use. I appreciate what you all are trying to do, but this is an issue, and it's not getting too far too fast. So I'm just following the others on which is Steve Carroll and Pat Simons, and I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Ms. Chris Evans.
Good evening, Mayor and Vice Mayor, City Council, and again, congratulations to the new gentleman there and back here. My name is Chris Evans, and I reside at 192 Yorkshire Road in Green Lakes, and I'm going to continue to recap the previous speaker's comments and continuing the findings and conclusions from the report of the special grand jury. It is this special grand jury's opinion that should the City Council feel it is in the city's best interest to appropriate funds to the school board by major classification and thereby require the school board to expend funds as classified and seek approval to deviate from the initial budget in a more public setting, they are free to do so. Under such circumstances, the school board will be required to seek the approval of City Council before moving funds from one classification to another, but would retain the right to move funds within a given classification in accordance with their needs and resources. Regardless of the amount of funds that were reallocated without a law prohibiting the movement of funds within or outside a category, the school board moved funds from one category to another without oversight or public input. By creating funds from attrition to be placed in the school construction fund without City Council approval, the school board was allowed to funnel funds from those devoted to our most important asset, the educators of our children, to facilitate maintenance, repairs, and construction. So that's the end of that part. I would just like to follow by stating that it looks like the classroom teachers and the children who are enrolled in public schools in Portsmouth are the losers here because the money was diverted from the classroom. All parents in Portsmouth should be concerned since parents are ultimately responsible for their children's education. And I have kids that are grown, and I know how important my children's education was to me and my husband. So I think this is something that all parents in Portsmouth should be concerned about. Also, citizens are coming to you this evening, to City Council, because you allocate the funds to the school board and have the budget. And all the Portsmouth taxpayers are writing the checks. So the upcoming budget and all of that is of concern to us because of our taxes. And that's an enormous thing that can continue to go up. Again, I want to be another one to thank you for turning the cameras back on. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Ms. Evans. Dr. Edmonds?
Yes, I think the special grand jury report is in. We know what the conclusion is, and we're in the process of trying to fix some things that won't go that way again. Things that were permitted by past councils way before many of us that were on this council now. But to give a shout out to the school system, we have the best schools in Tidewater. We have the best buildings. They all have gymnasiums. They all are air conditioned. We have no more mobile units. And I think in part, when it talks about misappropriation of money, the money may not have gone back through the proper channel, but it was used to strengthen our buildings. And I don't care how you dice it up. If we got lousy buildings, then it's not going to be conducive for great education. And teachers will go to other areas where they can find something that's better. But because we have great schools now, we have not had an exodus of teachers leaving the area. Our school accreditations are way up there, and they're getting better. But the grand jury report is in. We know what we need to do. We're in the process of doing it, and I think things are just going to get better. So everything else is now moot issues. So let's move ahead and let's not mess with the things that have already been settled.
Thank you, Dr. Edmonds. Madam Clerk.
Mr. James Bailey.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, City Council. I'm James Bailey. I'm a resident of Portsmouth. I live over at on Chestnut Street. But I came to talk to you all tonight, or actually introduce the City Council to a national movement that my nonprofit organization, 501c3, Virginia Cure, is taking on, called Ban the Box. I'll be getting with the city manager sometime after this meeting, hopefully, to talk more in detail about this Ban the Box movement, because it's one that the city can change as a matter of procedure. It's not a policy change. The Human Resource Director has the authority to make the change. And the Ban the Box movement is actually a national movement that's been taken on to ask cities to remove from their job application the box that asks, have you been convicted of criminal offense? Because we believe that acts as a barrier for many folks that would otherwise be qualified for jobs. And we know that the #1 cause of recidivism is the inability to obtain jobs. Last year, November 1st, I did a job fair over here in Portsmouth where I was able to get 7 private employers to attend the job fair, and I believe we had 63 jobs that are available, and it was specifically for folks that had criminal background issues. None of the cities would attend and offer jobs to these individuals, and there was 1,378 people that came out and stormed the environment that day, and it really amazed me that that many folks were that committed into getting jobs. So I really want to get with the city manager to see if there's something we can do to get the city to remove that box from the application. We were successful in getting the city of Newport News on November 1st last year to remove the job application from remove the box from their job application. And the city of Richmond is now working on removing that box from their job application as we speak. One caveat to the city of Newport News was they removed the box, but the state has statutes that mandate certain jobs have to ask and go into background history. So they put in an addendum application that would allow them, for those specific jobs, to ask that question in an addendum to the application. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Well done.
Mr. Corey Wells, Sr.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, City Council members. I won't be before you long. I come to you to bring attention to allowing food trucks in the city of Portsmouth. To my surprise, I went downtown a couple of days ago and to find out that food trucks are not allowed in the city of Portsmouth, but food carts are. Hot dog stands and such like that. I know that Norfolk is working on food trucks, and they allow food trucks, but not in the downtown area. So it kind of shocked me that Portsmouth doesn't allow food trucks. So I'm just raising the attention of the city council to allow food trucks in the city of Portsmouth. I'm looking to, in the future, be a future owner of a food truck here in Portsmouth. I think it would be great for the city. I am born and raised here, IC Norcom graduate, and me and my wife and kids are here. We own a house here, and I want to have my first business here. And a food truck will be a great, I think, an asset to Portsmouth. I know it's not a popular thing for brick and mortar restaurants, but I think it will bring the city to another level, and especially hearing what I heard tonight about the future of Portsmouth. The food trucks can bring bring to the economy, create jobs, bring the vibrancy to the city. I think it'll be wonderful to have. I think it'll be a nice attraction. I just want the city council to look at that and to take a look at that going forward. Another thing I want to raise with the food truck, and I know the mayor has brought up that getting healthy Portsmouth.
Absolutely.
And that's one of the things my food truck will have an option of healthy foods. I think that's great for the city, getting people out to walk and have a healthy option, going to a food truck and have healthy foods. So I just want to just raise up that and just get the approval of the city council to look at that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. We'll take a look at that, and thank you for coming. Vice Mayor Sherry.
Thank you, Mayor. I was just going to say the same thing. I was talking with the city manager as you were speaking, and we're going to look into that because, quite frankly, my colleagues are probably the same as I am. I wasn't aware that our ordinance prohibited it. So he'll take a look at it, and someone will probably be getting in touch with you before you leave tonight to get your information so we can stay in touch with you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Moody?
Mayor, I was going to just echo what my colleagues have said. I think that's a great idea. You know, at one time, food trucks, there was a company, what was it called, Stewart Sandwiches. Used to go around to a lot of construction sites. I was at Dowdy's back in the day, and they used to come there, and they provide a service. I see nothing wrong with a truck like that. I wouldn't stock too heavy on the healthy stuff, though. People like to look at it, but they still buy the pizza and the hamburgers.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Healthy Portsmouth.
Take care, sir.
Thank you, sir. Good night.
you.
Good job.
Mr. Clyde Toller.
Oh, boy.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, City Manager, and City Attorney. Decided now if I may need you, he may throw me out with this city going back to gavel. But anyway, I want to say something first. Congratulations to Mr. Thomas back here. I think his wife will make sure he be on the job and do the job real good. You know, behind every man there's a good woman. And that was 3 great women that came up here tonight and spoke to you. Ladies night out. I have been in certain deals and thing with all 3 of these young ladies sitting over here. And also many of the pastors. But I would like to say, tonight, for the first time in about 2 years, I want the citizen here, if you think that tonight this council did a good job, even the citizen that came up here, if you think they did a good job, I want you to remain seated. But if you don't think they did a good job, I want you to stand up. Now, I got to stand up because I'm up here. But if you think they haven't did a good job tonight and got along, beautiful, stand up. Well, seeing none, I want from now on, when I come up here, I want to see the same thing right now. The wolf was in here, now the bunny rabbit's in here. This is good. The rabbit, Easter rabbit is here. That's us. Now, see how nice and peaceful it is? God turned his face on us last week. He wasn't in here. He turned his face on us. Now God has returned back in here. Now you promise, you put your hand on the Holy Bible. Okay, you're governed by that. You're also governed by Robert rules. Don't forget that. Use the gavel 3 times. If I'm a ruler, set me down. But you've been very respectful to each and every one. I don't know why, but it kind of got me surprised. But I want to say something to you. Stop bringing up the past. A lot of you haven't even lived in the past. You don't know what it is. Leave the past alone, because when you bring up the past, you just stir up hate again. And that's what was in this chamber last week. Don't do that. And I say to the citizen, stop bringing up hate. Nobody, Mr. Wilson ain't did nothing to me, neither have Mr. Rowe. So why I'm going to try to pick on them and say that all people of another color is racist? Hey, let's get away from that. It's time to move on. And you haven't, when I served on a boat with Senator Lucas, my hair was black then too. But see, I turned a lot gray quicker than her because I'm way older than her. But we served together. Ms. Morrison, the same thing. But you see, we need to move on and stop always starting trouble. But you better be careful of the victims in your life that you may find yourself in a lawful and illegal trouble over your anger and the remarks that you come. You are responsible for all your hateful remarks that you say up here. Now, I have never disrespected any of you. I've been coming to this council ever since 1984. And I hate to see the way this city was going. No more bad reports, no more fighting one another, and we're going to be respectful when we come up here to speak to you. Because you're human just like we are human. And if you sit out here where I sit out here, some of the things that went on here last week, if you had heard the remarks, what some of these people say back here, I think you would jump out that chair. Because some of the people sit out here, they say some very, kids can be mean too. Kids are very mean. I was a kid once, we say, hey, your mama wear boondocks, we had a fight. But you see, we got to get beyond that and move on. I don't want to see this council fight one another no more. Let's be neighbors to one another. We're not a racist city, so stop bringing up that racist man. Because when you call somebody a racist, you better know what you're talking about. This is a very dangerous thing. But stop it, and let's all get together. And I see God is back in here because the devil show was in here last week. God is everywhere, but God ain't in every church either. The devil's in every church, and y'all have a nice Easter. Thank you.
Thank you, Sergeant Major, and good night.
Ms. Donna Sy.
Good evening. My name is Donna Sy. I live in the Woodbine Farm section of Churchland. Principle of Liberty 10. The God-given right to govern is vested in the sovereign authority of the whole people. We have a separation between the people and our leaders. This detachment from each other prevents us from sharing our values and determining priorities of our city. We have several factions in the city, two of which are the Portsmouth Partnership with its 5 affiliates and the MLK Executive Leadership Committee, all of which are vying for power and control over the citizens. With these organizations competing for power and control, the Citizens Council is deprived of its rights and authority on behalf of the whole people, not just a select few. There is a way to remedy all this conflict separating the people from their sovereign authority in our city. All the leaders of these factions, city representatives, and citizens need to come together to take the leadership practices inventory. Research reveals those of us who are the best at leading are also the best at learning. As leaders, we don't rest on our laurels or rely on our natural talents. Whatever our individual learning styles may be, we continually do more to improve ourselves. If we want to be the best we can be, we need to become a great learner. The inventory has 6 ways to improve ourselves. The first way focuses on the message, not the measures. We need to constantly ask ourselves, what are people trying to tell us about our leadership behavior? Where do we see consistencies and inconsistencies? Where are the patterns that shape how others see our leadership? We treat the inventory as a valid and useful information tool that will help us improve our leadership ability. The second way, we accept feedback as a gift. Feedback may not come wrapped in a package tied with a bow, but it's still a gift, perhaps one of the most valuable gifts we'll ever receive. Why? Because we know from research that leaders who are most open to feedback are far more effective than leaders who resist hearing other people's perspectives on our behaviors. The third way, we take the feedback seriously. People often wonder, will it really make a difference if we increase the frequency of the behaviors measured by the leadership practices inventory? Research consistently shows the more frequently we demonstrate the behaviors included in the inventory, the more likely we will be seen as effective leaders. The fourth way, we trust the feedback. The 5 principles of model leadership includes model the way, inspire a shared vision, challenge the process, enable others to act, and encourage the heart. These are generally independent of each other and measure different types of behavior. The fifth way, we value the differences in our observers' perspectives. We are three-dimensional people, and our feedback ought to be three-dimensional. We work with people from a variety of backgrounds and from a variety of functions and organizations. Information from these multiple perspectives better enable us to see how we lead across groups and situations. We need to value what each of our observers has to say, because each of us a bit more of a complete picture of ourselves. Lastly, the sixth way. Great leaders set goals and seek feedback. The inventory gives us a snapshot in time. It is a beginning point from which to move forward. It gives us great feedback, new ideas, and a focus to lead in more effective ways. The inventory organizes the 5 practices of leaders' behaviors by modeling the way, inspiring a shared vision, challenging the process, enabling others to act, and encouraging the heart. We can decide now as a team to heighten our focus and practice with great purpose by administering the instrument within a specific period of time. We can also work with a coach, facilitator, or trainer to help us determine the best time to administer the inventory so we can move our city forward as a team. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mr. Nelson Velez.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor. Welcome aboard, City Manager, City Attorney. Welcome aboard. I wanted to say that it's commendable that you removed the gag order from the people and allowed the people in the city of Portsmouth to hear the concerns of the citizens. If I had known we were going to be on primetime TV, I would have hit the beauty shop for some much needed assistance. I applaud Mr. Moody for bringing up an issue that was very important to make sure that this process by which you cut off and put a gag order on the citizens of Portsmouth was not duplicated. I'm sorry to hear that that did not go forward, but must be delayed until later on this year. I wanted to speak on the school board, which was cited for the misuse of funds. A tremendous amount of funds were diverted to another unauthorized department to the tune of $52 million over 5 years. As appalling as that is, what is even more striking is that some on the school board view this undercover action as something positive and labeled the Stuckwich initiative with pride. So much so that one board member celebrated the scheme publicly as part of her campaign when she was running for school board. 5 years of fraud is a long time. It takes a deliberate and intent to continue that fraud. You can imagine that every year for 5 years, significant funds were diverted to justify their calls for an increased budget in their funding. This was successful only due to the falsification of state and city documents. Could not be done if that was out in the open. Someone had to falsify the figures, sign off on it, and present it to city council as true. And that will get you in a lot of trouble. Anybody that works for the state, if they falsify documents, that is a serious offense. This is also a serious offense because it betrays the trust of the citizens of the city and the city council. 5 years is a long time to get comfortable with perpetrating an ongoing, what I call a crime, falsification of state documents and city documents. This was done knowingly in violation of state law and city. The grand jury already acknowledged that. What they didn't do was they didn't call it a crime. this will continue because they are comfortable doing it. And I'm sure that you're working diligently, hopefully in good cooperation, to prevent this from happening in the future. But the culture is still there. They were, as late as last year, they were celebrating this as a positive thing. And I've seen some articles in the editorial in the paper saying that this was a good thing from other cities. So I think it's a real serious problem, not just because of the amount, but what it means to go in and intentionally shift figures into a budget that doesn't exist. The category of construction funds does not exist legally. This is not something that was approved. That's another issue, too. So I think, considering the lateness of the hour, that we would recommend that the grand jury recommendation is a good one and a sound one. Instead of giving them a lump sum, you categorize it. You have a paper trail that way. It's easier to follow. Lump sums are very difficult. And much mischievous actions can be done. I'm the chairman of the Portsmouth Tea Party, and I would support your efforts to make the school board more accountable. Money's very scarce, so I hope that you are successful in this endeavor. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Ms. Cantrell Devon.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, Bishop Evans. My name is Cantrell Devon, and I reside in Newport. I want to come before this council, first of all, saying always is Happy Women's Month. So I want to say Happy Women's Day and month to everyone. Also, before we go forward, I feel like we was robbed a few weeks of our Black History Month due to the reporting that was done and the statements that was constantly being made in such a negative way. So with my 5 minutes, I'm going to take a few minutes to honor Dr. Martin Luther King and our Black history, which is my heritage that I stand proud of. Now, see, everyone is wondering how long am I going to take my moment to honor history. But I feel like so many times we forget when we have authority and control what the others had to endure and the time it took for us to get to a place to have authority and influence. Senator Lucas is one of my mentors. Cynthia Morrison is one of my mentors. They don't know it, but I know it. And I was proud when I found out they was going to be here because it lets me know we have a voice. And influence you cannot kill. I don't care what you do. I bet you they wish they would have kept Dr. Martin Luther King alive had they known. Also, when Harriet Tubman, they didn't think we would do it, but guess what she did? We went under the railroad. We will find an avenue to be heard however we deem necessary. So let's not play the race card. I'm raising my sons. We have angry young men throughout our city. And once a fight starts, unfortunately, sometimes there are no barriers. And that's the sad reality. Never, ever mess with Black ministers. And I'm going to call color because color was called. Because they keep our young men in safety rams when there's no one else to talk to. A lot of the families, they don't have Black fathers in their household. And it's that leader and that voice of that leader that pours into our single mothers, who counsels their young men, who set up programs in their churches to strengthen young men. So please, from this night forward, let's use wisdom. I told Councilman Meeks that I would apologize to him because I took that head on because I made a vow within myself. I would not let the mantle fall. You know, I took that pledge on, and I have been doing it diligently. I want to thank Cynthia Morrison, Honorable Cynthia Morrison, because it was a project that I had in place. For Valentine's Day, I wanted to take the homeless out of being in a homeless shelter. And because of the advice that she gave me to pull them out of Lincoln Park, and I did so, my program made the Channel 10 news. And I could not share this with you all because you made me hot. So let's try to stay out of hot waters because, like I said, I'm from Portsmouth. And we believe if there's a fight, if the family's in a fight, we have to fight with the family. So let's not divide the family because I'm going to stand with mine no matter what. Sink or swim, they're going to look and see my name is on the roster. So I want to thank Bishop Edmonds also because he has just taken me in and has adopted me as his daughter. You didn't know that, but I got the paperwork. And so I prefer for us to be more light. And I would say this, if you have to cut the cameras off, because I remember what they was representing. I was fussing about it. I did not like it. They didn't show character or integrity. Shut it down. Makes me none. I'm going to say what I have to say. So it's up to them to respect you all and the places that you hold. Now that I do know you all have your jobs, congratulations. I still would like to meet with you because DEVA has to help our community. I also have a few seconds left. While we're making plans, I want to know why Parkview doesn't have their field returned back to them and Victory Crossing. Those young people need an avenue to be able to go outside and play. They told me not to leave, but I'm a mother, and I'm a single mother now, so I'm going home to my sons. Good night.
Thank you, ma'am. Good night.
Mr. Tony Goodwin.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, City Council members. My name is Tony Goodwin, and I reside in the Parkview section of the city. A lot of good has happened here tonight. I'm very, very delighted to see that. The congratulations to our city manager and city attorney, and also the city auditor. The adoption of course, moving forward with the former Craddock High School property. Also the Kroger Marketplace. These things are all good for this city, and I applaud you for being proactive tonight and making those things a reality. Adding to that, the study that is going to be conducted is again another disparity study. Is going to be another great thing for us to see the outcome of that. Publicly, I'd like to also thank the City Manager's Office for representing themselves with Mr. Brandon Godfrey at the annual meeting of the Old Town Business Association this morning, along with his colleague, Mr. Patrick Small from the Economic Development. And I would be remiss to not include Caroline Penny from our Visitors Department, Visitor Centers Department. And in that meeting today, we came to a resolution that we felt like moving forward from this point, we had a lot of conversation over the past 6 months, making sure that Old Town was prepared for whatever might happen on January 1st, 2014, with the big monster at the end of the tunnel, and that is called tolls. If of course, we have a lawsuit that is successful and derails that process, then great, because we are all planning with our own businesses, not only in downtown, preparing for the potential of a cul-de-sac, but also at the same time preparing our entire city to be competitive. And in the world of business, competitive is not a bad word. It's very, very healthy to be competitive. Portsmouth as a whole needs to be steadfast and competitive in the Hampton Roads region. And the way we do that, obviously, is working together, working on the same even keel, and keeping integrity and positive focus in place, and feel as if we come out of a meeting knowing that we've made an impact, and as we did this morning, knowing that we have a Convention of Visitors Bureau or that somewhat form coming back to our city and moving that process forward as well. Again, that is a compliment to the hard work that Mr. Rowe's office has put forth with the dialogue that we've had and what's come out of that, and what we like to see is a continual effort or a collaboration to continue these positive movements that we're seeing here tonight from this point forward. So thanks again for the opportunity.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Meeks?
Mayor, I need to address something. When we were campaigning, I watched people come up here and they beat you up. week after week. It was just an ugly sight. And one night, your children, your wife, and your kids was here. It was ugly. It was real ugly. And I thought that I was in the audience. I just wanted to come up and said, "Look, you know, his kids are there," and I felt bad for you. Tonight, your kid and your wife. I mean, your wife and your daughter was here. You made an opening statement I didn't agree with 100%. But I didn't want to be that person out there beating you up. So tonight, when you go home, give your wife a big hug and a big kiss, because we have to work together for 3 more years. All right.
I've got your permission, sir?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Madam Clerk.
Yes, sir. Our final speaker is Mrs. Glenna Cornett.
I didn't think this time would ever get here. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members, Mr. Rowe, Mr. Wilson, and Mr. Thomas, and Senator Lucas. My name is Glenna Cornett, and I reside in Park Manor, section of Portsmouth. I was going to continue with the findings and the conclusions from the report of the special grand jury for the school board. But I don't want to beat a dead horse by expounding on the school board dilemma. We all know it's a big dilemma, needs to be taken care of, and from everything that I've heard some of you say tonight, it's on the way to being taken care of, and I certainly hope so. Ms. Swindell had concluded that during the 5-year period of the fiscal years 2006 and 7 through 2010 and 11, that over $52 million of the school board funds were transferred to other accounts. And quite a bit of it was transferred to a school construction fund. I unfortunately had never heard of that before. So I'm not going to say any more other than we would just like for the City Council to take action by appropriating funds to the schools by category, which is what you all have said already up here. And I want to thank all of you for coming on board with your opposition to the tolls and for your support for the lending pending litigation. I appreciate it very much. Thank you and good night.
Thank you, ma'am. Good night.
Hey, Mayor. Is that it?
Councilman Meeks.
One other item, Mayor, and through our last couple weeks, I don't have no ill will with anybody. I don't have a hit list or personal agenda. I want Portsmouth to be a great place for everybody to live, work, and play, and for our kids and us. You know, I want it to be fair and equal for everybody. And that's pretty much all I had to say.
Thank you. Councilwoman Randall.
We've had such a thoughtful meeting this evening. In fact, we were able to talk to one another as usually we talk to one another in family. And I'm very happy to see that. But I'm very happy to see that we have representation not only from the communities, but I look at our elected officials. I think about our senator, and I couldn't let it go by without acknowledging you and thinking about what a grand job you're doing. And we appreciate you taking time to come and look us over to make sure we go the right route. We appreciate that and keep lifting us up. The Honorable Cynthia Morrison, who not only keeps things going in that legal area and everything going along, but she's also a citizen and she supports us. And I want you to know that support is out here with her. From the faith-based community, none other than our Dr. Joe B. Flemings, who's all over the place with his prayers and his best wishes for us. And if he can't get to you, one of the others will find you. And if they don't catch up with you, we have Dr. Elizabeth Daniels, who's on the school board, and also with you, with the, help me, darling, my mind's so young. Dr. Daniels with the NAACP. And see, I can't call the name sitting right there behind. Blunt, yes. I'm trying to think of the niece, Dr. Keys. And see, my eyes are so young, but I didn't want you to miss these people because they're all over the community doing a beautiful job to help everybody. They are colorblind when it comes to working for the will of the people. But we are very happy to see you out, and it's a good opportunity for people to know you don't just sit behind an office door and a desk. You're out in the communities to find out what's going on. We appreciate you. We may not say it often that we appreciate you and what you are doing to bring our communities together. But those of us who live out with you and among you, we know it. The churches know it. You'll know it too after a while. So, I mean, I just want to know you. You'll know it because they make their voices heard, and you'll know them. But I'd say to all of you, to the Portsmouth family, and we are family, when we look at the Civic League people, I want them to stand. I'm thinking about the people out here. Come and stand up, Reggie. All of you know who we're talking about. You head the Civic Leagues. And come on, community leaders, stand up. You all are at all of the meetings, and people know you're here, and I think they need to see you. These are the people who work out in our communities every day to try to make things better for all of us. And I think all of us ought to know that. And so I'm going to close it out with that because I don't want to sound like a preacher. But I think people need to know that these are the people who make a joyful noise for everybody. So God bless you and thank you.
Thank you, and we're adjourned.
Yes. That's right.
A big hug.
Yeah.